And only 18% of economically disadvantaged children enter the classroom ready to learn, meaning 82% are not ready for kindergarten. Those facts prompted the creation of Live Inspired, a ministry to serve under-resourced families by building a language-rich home and promoting positive parent-child interactions, thereby developing earlier literacy and social skills necessary for school readiness. And if you're going to the banquet tonight, I'll see you there. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 6:03 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Good morning and happy Thursday. It is 6:07. Lauren's out today, but we got Ron and Daria. Hey,
Hello.
guys.
Hi.
So Dave Szfranski will be here to answer your financial questions from 8 to 9. So you can text those in anytime you want. We'll set them aside. 440-546-2255. 440-546-2255. Boy, I wish it would rain. Oh, it's been so dry lately. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Goodness sakes, it was raining so hard here this morning. I was like kind of scared.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, you could hear it like, through the attic into it was raining hard.
I couldn't hear it in here.
I think the worst part is when you're driving and the glare of your headlights is like reflecting on the road so you can't see where the lines are.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
And then you get someone coming the other way who's got their brights on. That might have happened to me this morning.
Yep. They're just like, no big deal.
I'm blind. Can't see a thing. I'm just going to hit this mailbox. It's fine.
So you may want to allow some extra time this morning. It's pretty wet out there.
That's why I love some of the roads have gotten the grooves on the side now.
Yes.
And so when you do face that and you're blinded, you want to stay away from the car. So you head out a little bit. But before you get to the mailbox, you'll hear that.
Yeah.
That helps me a lot.
Oh, yeah. I love that stuff. But you made it, Daria.
I did. I survived. I'm here.
And how are the mailboxes?
I think they're okay, but you can call the station if you find your mailboxes in disrepair this morning.
Some other good news. We talked yesterday about how we were on Fox 8 on what day was that? Tuesday?
Yes.
Tuesday. What day is it today?
It's been a long week between the eclipse and that. My days are all blurring together.
Mine as well, sister. So just keep reminding each other it's Thursday. But you got that posted yesterday. We have the full interview Lauren and I did on Fox 8 up on social media.
It's on Facebook and Instagram. Go check it out. Brian and Lauren did a great job.
Yes, they did.
Oh, stop.
You did.
Okay, thanks. And I'm seeing some wonderful response. Here's the good news. I think this is a great opportunity if you love the show and you're a friend of the program and you want to share in a non-threatening way with somebody. What's the show you talk about all the time? Without them having to actually, admit they went to the radio station. Share this post.
Mm-hmm.
Just hit share. We've already had a bunch of people do it. Hit share on whichever post that you're looking at. You can do it on Instagram, right? Share it.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram. It's also on YouTube if you want to send it that way.
Yeah, just, share it and say, hey, this is a show I listen to every day. You should check it out. And I don't know, maybe people will give us a chance if they take a few minutes just to watch that basic interview.
Yeah.
We tried to keep it, low key, talking to secular news.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Jesus, but we didn't want to be all like, let's pray on TV. And
David, drop to your knees with me now and let's pray.
yeah, Lauren,
Repent.
you could just sing the doxology before we end here today. No, we didn't do any of that. It was hopefully all something you'd feel comfortable sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, speaking of comfortable sharing, we got to get all up in your business here. There was an interesting New York Times article that maybe will resolve a debate Sarah and I have. We're going to start with Daria, ladies first.
Okay.
The question is it better to brush your teeth before breakfast or after breakfast?
After.
Okay.
I would agree.
What? So you get up with your nasty breath and you put food in your mouth with nasty breath.
I do brush my teeth before I eat, but
So you brush your teeth twice in the morning?
no, I'm just saying it would be better if I did it after, because then I keep that nasty food on my mouth for however long until I brush again.
So wait, which one do? You brush right away when you get up?
Yeah, I wake up, I take my shower, I brush my teeth,
Yeah, there you
get
go.
dressed,
Yeah.
go downstairs, eat, and pollute my mouth again.
And Daria, you brush your teeth after breakfast.
So I usually brush them first, but that's just because I usually have to take my breakfast to go because I get up so early. But
If it's a weekend.
if it's a weekend, I will brush my teeth after breakfast because I don't like going 3 meals between brushing my teeth.
Wow, so poor Jimmy wakes up, would like to give you a good morning kiss, but it's like nastiness pouring out of your mouth until after breakfast.
No,
He's
she's-
not up that early.
She's always sweet-breathed.
Thank you, Ron.
Science would say otherwise. Sarah is the after breakfast type. She specifically after coffee. She doesn't like the taste of toothpaste in her mouth while she takes a sip
Yeah.
of coffee.
Oh, yeah, because coffee's acidic. You probably should brush your teeth after that anyway.
Well-
Peppermint coffee is not a big hit usually.
Unless it's
No.
Christmas.
Yeah, and I do it the right way, which would be to get up, brush your teeth, then do other things because of all the nastiness happening in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have nasty teeth the rest of the day because you go breakfast, lunch, and dinner before you brush your teeth again that night.
Well, here we go. The New York Times says everyone knows that you should brush your teeth at least twice a day, once in the morning and once before bedtime. But when it comes to your morning routine, is it better to brush before or after breakfast? For many people, breakfast includes sugary carbohydrates, says Dr. Carlos Gonzalez Cabezas, a dentist, professor, and associate dean of academic affairs at University of Michigan. Boo. School of Dentistry. Gross. Anyway, we'll listen to him for a minute and see how we feel. You know, like you eat cereals, breads, muffins, pancakes, all those things contain fermentable carbohydrates. Sounds like that weird fake cheese you put on your food.
Nutritional yeast.
Oh, yeah, nutritional yeast.
Fermentable carbohydrates.
Yes, Jimmy, could I have some fermentable carbohydrates this morning? And bacteria loves to feed on those. So when you wake up in the morning, the bacteria levels in your mouth are at their peak. He says, that's why we have bad breath when we wake up. It's bacteria. Daria says, I think I'm going to leave that there. And so a mouth rife with bacteria and a breakfast full of sugary carbs means the conditions are perfect for the bacteria to flourish and multiply.
That's why you brush your teeth after that.
When this happens, no, that's not the answer. So when this happens, they release acids that can wear down the protective enamel. So blah, blah, blah. Bad, 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 bad. Another reason to brush your teeth before breakfast is to jumpstart the production of saliva, which is one of the most protective forces for your teeth. Meanwhile, Daria's saliva glands are weeping. They're trying to, but they can't. They have no tears. And then, of course, apparently the end conclusion, they say, is that there's no solid proof either way. There's no definitive answer whether it's best before or after. But I liked all the arguments.
Why do we have an article then?
Yeah.
You just have all this evidence. It doesn't actually matter. We don't know.
Well, see, I think if I'm, dentists, 2 out of 3 of them can only agree on certain things.
Yeah. But 9 out of 10 agreed that Camel was the best cigarette.
Right. Really great for your teeth. Have another puff. But I think the reasons they gave for brushing before are better. That's just me. Here's the case for brushing after breakfast. They say the reality is that most people don't brush that well. So even if you brush right before breakfast, you probably will still have bacteria lingering in your mouth and could multiply and produce acids during breakfast, blah, blah, blah. And he says the fluoride from your toothpaste will work better throughout the day if it's not displaced by chewing food right after you brush. Some experts argue that brushing your teeth too soon after a meal, especially one with acidic beverages like coffee and orange juice, will damage the enamel. So they actually say you're supposed to wait 30 minutes.
No one has that kind of time in the morning.
Oh.
What about bringing a toothbrush and toothpaste to work?
That's an idea.
But it sounds like if you're not willing to wait 30 minutes after you have your breakfast, you should not be brushing your teeth after you eat. Daria.
But only if you have coffee and orange juice first thing in the morning, which I don't.
Ah.
Well, what about your nutritional yeast? Do you have that? Wasn't that what it was? No, it's fermentable carbohydrates. I bet you have those in your breakfast. Daria.
I had eggs this morning. Are those fermentable carbohydrates?
Nope.
Probably.
No, they're not.
You're always good at coming back to things.
Great at that.
Stop it. I feel like the argument's better for before. I mean, as long as you brush your teeth well, it sounds like it's better to do it before.
How about this? We just agree everyone brush their teeth.
Amen.
Yeah, I went to the dentist once, and I could overhear the dentist having to go to this guy and the thing next to me. Because, dentists are not about privacy. You notice that?
No.
Not very well.
They're not about it at all. They're about open spaces for us all to hear about each other's oral hygiene problems. She's like, you really need to, brush your teeth. And he was like, what?
Oh, no.
And he was like a grown person.
Brush your teeth, floss.
Who had needed 6 root canals because he didn't do that.
Oh.
And I was kind of like, well, wait, where's he been?
Mm-hmm.
You could just watch TV and figure out you're supposed to brush your teeth.
We did this thing in elementary school where we got a red dye tablet or something.
We did too.
Yes.
Wow. That convinced me of the need to brush your teeth.
Yeah. All of us don't brush well enough when you use those things.
Yeah.
What is that stuff? Here, chew on these chemicals. It's going to brighten up the bacteria.
It was red dye number 5.
I think it might have been. Could have
Probably.
been nutritional yeast for all I know, Daria.
I don't think so.
I feel like it's probably not free range, though. You should be careful with that stuff. Okay, so in the end, I'm right.
We knew that from the beginning.
No, Ron. Come on. I'm outnumbered today. Please send help.
Okay, we got to take a quick break. And we come back, I can't resist talking about stories like this that deal distinctly with mercy and justice, issues brought up all over the place in Scripture. There's a particular situation that just took place in Missouri. I think that's worth talking about from a faith perspective. It's a tough one, but we'll get to it here in just a minute.
The words you are about to hear are taken from letters sent in by members of the Trinity Debt Management Program.
Dear Trinity, today I'm making my final credit card payment.
Before I came to you, I was in a constant state of anxiety and panic, but now there is hope for my family's financial future.
Working with Trinity made me understand that I'm not alone.
You really do help people.
Your kindness will never be forgotten.
Without Trinity's support, I would not have achieved my lifelong goal of becoming debt-free.
We saved a lot on interest and penalties, of course, but the reward was the gift of human kindness.
Trinity has carried me through a very difficult time in my life. You're amazing.
I used to feel so anxious and hopeless. Now I feel grace and peace.
God bless Trinity as you continue to help others become debt-free.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-659-9838. That's 1-800-659-9838.
We read, to fear the Lord. But what does that mean? Godly fear is not the same as our human fear. Our fear makes us want to run away. But fear of the Lord draws us closer. Fear of the Lord brings love, faithfulness, security. Join Today in the Word for our April Bible study. Fear the Lord and draw closer. Sure seems like a good use of your April. Join our study today by downloading the free app or go to todayintheword.com.
Brian's third grade teacher left us a voicemail.
Please record your message.
I always thought that Brian would be a circus performer or a radio host. At least I got one right.
It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
6:22 now on WCRF. Don't forget, if you want to join us for that Dr. Josh Moody event coming up on April 18th at Bedford Church of the Nazarene. It's a Thursday night at 6 p.m. It's a dessert reception. Time's running out, and this thing's filling up.
Yes, it is.
It's a big party with desserts of unknown specificity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to get too specific anymore.
I just heard Pastor Moody. I was going to say Josh, and I thought, I don't know him that well.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, Dr. Moody. Ron.
I just heard the Reverend Dr. Joshua Moody say last night on his program that he's been a big U2 fan for a long time.
Oh, I'll be using that.
I figured you might.
Dr. Moody, have you found what you're looking for, or are you still looking?
He does not strike me as a U2 person.
He has many things about him that are unexpected. His wife was a heavy metal drummer.
Oh, my gosh.
She's not anymore because she's a full-time mom right now, but I bet she could just throw down some Metallica if she really wanted to.
Interesting.
And then he told us one time, I remember he went into a small group, and their worship was so boring and slow that him and his buddy, when they were done, they went into the car and then cranked up some like hard rock to really get themselves amped up. You too. Oh, boy. Well, should we call him The Edge from stage? Taking us to the edge here, Dr. Moody. Oh. But if you want to join us, just text the word Moody to 440-546-2255. Text Moody to 440-546-2255. For those who aren't aware, we have a growing number of listeners at Lorraine Correctional in Grafton.
Excellent.
Yeah, in fact, there was a group of 30 guys that pointed and laughed while I had my beard shaved a while back. And guys, I'm pleased to report that I no longer have a baloney face. Thank you. And I got to tell you, Lauren and I had a chance to go visit there. I've been back since. And before I had a chance to visit what Pastor Scott's doing at Lorraine Correctional, to be honest, I was relatively indifferent about incarceration. I mean, it's not that I was ignoring it. I didn't think about it very often.
Right.
And I had very surface level opinions because I hadn't ever kind of experienced anything like that.
Yeah, no personal connection.
Correct. I don't have anyone in my immediate family or, circle of friends who are incarcerated at the moment. But going in to meet those guys, it was, I don't know if transformative is too big of a word, but it really opened my eyes. And because there's some wonderful dudes who love Jesus in there. So it's made me think a lot more about incarceration and criminal justice.
Yeah. When our whole worldview of the incarcerated community is based on TV and movies, all you think about is, watch your back. Somebody's going to shank you.
Right. But no, we've got guys at Lorraine Correctional who are, I mean, it's not the entire population, but there's a group of guys who are trying to make a huge difference for the kingdom inside the walls.
Excellent.
And there's no question the scripture talks about the fact that we ought to not just care about people who are in prison, but visit them. And so I can't help but bring up an article I saw in the Washington Post about one particular inmate out of Missouri. Because, as it says here, the state of Missouri executed Brian Dorsey just shortly after 6 p.m. local time on Tuesday this week. And executions are much less common now based on a number of factors. He was convicted in December of 2006 in a double murder of his cousin and her husband. Hours earlier, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to stop the execution. No dissents were noted in the court's decision to reject two bids filed Sunday by the death row inmate Dorsey, who was 52, and had been placed, and he was been held in Potosi Correctional Center in Washington County, Missouri. They also tried Missouri Governor Mike Parson. He denied a separate plea for clemency this week. And so Dorsey's legal team and his supporters had argued in the clemency petition that it would be wrong to execute Dorsey because he's been, as they said, rehabilitated. They said, don't do this. I mean, they didn't say let him out. They just said, don't kill him.
Okay.
And so you might think, oh, okay, well, yeah, of course his lawyers would say that. He's fine now. Don't execute him. Now, according to this article, he had unprecedented written support from dozens of prison staff members, including a former warden. Very specifically, he was called a model inmate, one who lived in the honor dorm and works as a prison barber. He gave haircuts to prison guards. Talk about trust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Retired Warden Troy Steele, who headed the Potosi Correctional Center where he was held, wrote of Dorsey that, quote, his behavior is reported as exceptional, having received no reports of any type of misconduct. He wrote that Dorsey had achieved, quote, the highest level of respect and confidence from staffers in the prison. A group of more than 70 corrections officers or corrections staff members at the prison wrote a letter to Parson, the governor, in which they said that they are usually in favor of the death penalty, but are, quote, in agreement that the death penalty is not the appropriate punishment for Brian Dorsey, according to a court filing. They know he was convicted of murder, but that's not the Brian, quote, they know.
Mm-hmm.
A former warden at that prison and 70 employees who get haircuts from him said, don't kill him, please. Governor was like, nah, we'll let it happen. I don't think it was that callous. The governor, that's not fair to me. The governor allowed it to take place. He didn't stop. He didn't offer clemency. And the Supreme Court of the United States unanimously just didn't do anything. And so he was put to death.
Now, I'm wondering, the Supreme Court, they actually had to hear this plea and chose to do nothing, right? It's not like it sat on their desk and they didn't get to it in time.
Yeah, correct.
They actively chose not to do anything.
That is correct. Yeah. And in these cases, I think they get, I don't know all the legal terminology, but it gets pressed in front of them and they have to make a decision because they've stopped executions in the past. But we have to remember that in terms of the Supreme Court, they can't just go, he seems nice, never mind, don't kill him. They're bound to interpret the law.
Yeah.
And so they're bound to take facts of the case and determine whether or not he was justly punished and justly sentenced. They don't get to have their feelings as part of it.
True.
A governor is a different story. You know how that goes. When governors and presidents leave office, a few hours before they are done, they're just signing pardons. Woo! Let them out.
Yeah. You contributed my campaign, you're out.
Right. I mean, for any reason whatsoever. But of course, the question has to be, Brian, don't be a big softy. What did he do? We'll talk about the crime a little bit more in a few minutes and see how we feel about this idea. When you have a former warden and 70 employees of the prison said, don't execute this man. Just keep him here. We love him. He's changed. Why would they do that? We'll talk more about that in a few minutes.
Trusting God means thinking and acting according to God's word in spite of circumstances, feelings, or consequences. I'm Darcy Harrod, and this is Pause for Prayer. That quote by Warren Wiersbe is so convicting. I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to let circumstances, feelings, and consequences dictate a lot of the direction of my life. But as a Christ follower, we need to live counterculturally. We live by the truth of God's word, no matter what situation we find ourselves in. But if we're being honest, that can be really hard to do. Let's pause for prayer. Father, I don't have an ounce of ability to do this on my own. None of us do. But help us to trust you. Help us to know deep inside our bones that no matter what happens in our lives, you are in control. Your word stands firm. You are truth. In Proverbs 3:5-6, we are told to trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not on our own understanding. In all our ways submit to him, and he will make our paths straight. Help us to believe this. Help us to know that this is the truth. And when life throws us curveballs and doubts start creeping in, be our guiding light, Lord. Shine your truth into our hearts, giving us the courage to live every day of our lives the way you tell us to. We're banking on your promises, knowing that anyone who trusts in you won't be disappointed. Strengthen our faith, God, and give us the power to stick to your word no matter what comes our way. And as we surrender everything to you, fill us with your peace, the kind that doesn't make sense to the world, but guards our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen.
You know, you see a huge group of people and maybe they're in line to do something and they seem happy about it. You have to wonder, okay, what am I missing? What's going on here? What are these people excited about? Well, in this case, it's thousands of people and they're joining MediShare. Why? Well, MediShare is a much more affordable alternative to health insurance. It's reliable, too. It's a well-run community of Christians. They've been sharing each other's medical expenses for more than 30 years, so it's proven. And if you switch, you'll likely save hundreds of dollars a month. Most members wind up paying about half what they used to. And you know what? They find they like it better. MediShare's member satisfaction rate is 98%. That's way better than health insurance, as you might imagine. You don't have to pay for things you don't believe in. You get telehealth 24/7, huge freedom in choosing your doctors. At least check into it. This may be one of those things where you're like, why didn't I do this a long time ago? Why not start saving now? Call 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE. 877-58-BIBLE.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m. Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
637 WCRF. We've got the upcoming Cleveland Leadership Prayer Breakfast and Akron Leadership Prayer Luncheon on May 2nd. The IX Centers, where you can go to the breakfast. The speaker is the CEO of Coca-Cola Consolidated. It's a great place and event to take somebody from your office, maybe, or a neighbor or something that is a professional and is open spiritually.
Yeah.
They'll hear the gospel there. But it's also, I think, a very seeker-friendly kind of place.
Right.
I know that's got some loaded meaning to it, but I mean it in the best sense.
Right.
So for more information and to get your tickets today, just text PRAY to 440-546-2255. Text PRAY to 440-546-2255.
And if you're going and you don't care for your bacon, find me at my table.
Ron will eat all the bacon.
Yeah.
If you would like.
I'll just put a big plate there and everybody walk by and toss some in.
Yeah. Right. And you'll eat it all. As much as they can give you.
Oh, I love it.
Who doesn't? Probably Daria. There's not enough consolidated fiber or whatever on it.
What?
I don't know. What was that term?
Nutritional yeast.
There you go.
And what was the carbohydrate?
Fermented
carbohydrates.
Yeah. Oof. Sounds like millennials and Gen Z will love that. Ooh, give me some more of those. You mean pancakes? Oh, wait. No, I don't want that. It's not healthy. Okay. If you just are tuning in before the break, and song, we were chatting about a case out of Missouri. I can't resist talking about cases in the criminal justice system that make national headlines, because as Christians we're supposed to care for those in prison, and because my experience visiting twice now at Lorraine Correctional, seeing some guys who love Jesus, trying to make a difference for the kingdom in there, I can't resist talking about these things as the Lord has softened my heart in this area. So the guy's name is Brian Dorsey. He's been incarcerated for 17 years, and he was just executed last week, or a couple days ago, in the state of Missouri, after his lawyers filed an appeal at the U.S. Supreme Court, who declined to do anything about it. The Missouri governor declined to offer clemency. And in spite of all that, a former warden of the prison and 70 employees of the prison said, please don't kill him. He's rehabilitated. Somebody asked by text, they said, almost 20 years later, they give the death penalty. Why wait that long? Well, it's actually probably not that long. It can take longer than that.
Oh, yeah. You got to think you got your case that runs for any length of time to actually get to the point where the person is convicted and sent to prison. But then there's all the appeals that go on, and occasionally you find new evidence that comes up.
That's right.
Or sometimes you find prosecutorial misconduct where they were trying to rack up their numbers so they didn't tell the defense about something.
Yeah, it's such a long process because they don't want to kill an innocent person on accident.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's right. It's supposed to be long. And by the way, it's way more expensive than life in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Way more expensive. We talked about that before. If you don't believe me, go look it up. It's all over the internet.
It's on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. We had a whole conversation about it. So, but the big question becomes, wait, before y'all get soft there, Brian, what did he do? Let's talk about it. 2 days before Christmas in 2006, Brian Dorsey's cousin, Sarah Bonney, and her husband, Ben Bonney, took in Dorsey because a pair of drug dealers were threatening him to collect on a drug debt. And Dorsey was in a, quote, psychotic state from not sleeping for 72 hours while on a crack cocaine bender, according to his attorneys. So he's on a cocaine bender, not slept for 72 hours, and that night, prosecutors said, Dorsey shot the couple while they were in bed, and they left behind a 4-year-old daughter. Wow. It's terrible. Prosecutors said Dorsey took a cell phone, jewelry, 2 firearms, and a copy of Bambi 2 belonging to the daughter of the victims, and he took the items to repay a drug debt. Now, Daria made a good point yesterday in our meeting about that stack of things he was trying to repay a drug debt with. I mean, he clearly was not thinking.
Yeah,
real
that
straight.
might have been Lauren. But yeah, that you're not going to get much money for any of those things. So clearly he wasn't in his right mind.
I mean, Bambi 2? I mean, of all the movies you're going to grab, that's worth a lot. No, I don't think anyone's seen it.
Yeah, the firearms, if he was intending to sell them or use them as collateral, he probably got, fairly decent money for them. But jewelry. Who knows what the quality of the jewelry was?
But now, and it doesn't seem that prosecutors are disputing the fact that he was on a drug bender and hadn't slept for 72 hours. Okay? I'm not saying it's a good excuse, but I'm saying it does paint a different picture, does it not? I mean, I don't know. And when he learned the police were looking for him, he turned himself in and cooperated, his attorney said. So, so he was executed. I don't know. Any thoughts on that crime?
It's horrific. And regardless of whether he was in his right mind or not, he needed punished in some way.
Yeah, there's consequences for double murder.
Yeah, obviously.
There ought to be.
And
Romans 13.
Leaving a child an orphan. However, I do think being followers of Jesus, it demands of us, even if it's a criminal, the loss of life should make us sad.
Which life?
Any life. Like him being executed, even if he was a hardened criminal, that should make us sad because we're all sinners as well, and that's a person.
Now, Dorsey's current attorneys argued that their client received ineffective counsel at his trial. And the reason for that, and this was sent up all the way up to the Supreme Court as part of this, his current attorneys said that the previous attorneys conducted no investigation. They obtained nothing from Mr. Dorsey in exchange for his guilty plea. Like they just convinced him to plead guilty and they didn't get anything in exchange for that.
And normally they offer a bit of leniency if you're going to plead guilty.
Right.
The original attorneys did not disclose that Dorsey was in a drug-induced psychosis. The current attorneys argued that the part of the reason was financial. Why? Because in Missouri, trial attorneys receive a flat fee of $12,000, regardless of whether it's a death penalty case, which takes a lot more time and work. And there's been multiple organizations, including the American Bar Association in Missouri and some other organizations that have said, yeah, it's a problem that we only offer the flat fee for death penalty cases. How can you really get justice enacted when sometimes attorneys are compelled to defend someone? Because we all have that right. And they only get $12,000.
Yeah. So they want it done as soon as they can be done so they get back to making more money.
3 years before the crime, the American Bar Association wrote that, quote, counsel in death penalty cases should be fully compensated at a rate that is commensurate with the provision of high-quality legal representation and reflects the extraordinary responsibilities inherent in a death penalty representation. But his attorneys only got $12,000. But that wasn't a big enough argument, apparently, for the governor or for anybody else. Nor was the word of 70 correction staff or a former warden.
Well, he didn't deny committing the murders.
No, in fact, he made a final statement.
So
before he was executed.
Yeah, bad representation or not, he admitted the guilt. So he, in the judge's mind, that was, you're guilty. Here's the sentence.
Well, yeah, and on top of that, it matters whether he's sorry, I guess, right? Doesn't society care about that?
No.
Like, you don't think society cares?
Not in a court case. I don't think a judge, not on a murder. Maybe you ran a red light or something like that.
Right.
but I don't think, you commit a double murder because you're cracked out on cocaine. I don't think the judge is going to say, well, now you're sorry about it. He's going to probably think you're sorry because you're going to die and you want me to do something about that, but don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
What about to the general public? Like as Christians are considering this particular story, should it matter if he's repentant?
Yes.
In terms of how he would feel about the fact that he wasn't offered clemency. Yeah.
Yeah.
If he's nice but not sorry, it'd be harder to go like, please spare his life.
Right. If he were saying, well, they deserved it. My cousin and her husband deserved to be shot in their bed while they were asleep.
Yeah, I didn't mean it.
Then yeah, it'd be harder to be sorry, to feel sad for him. But I keep thinking of this model prisoner is actually doing good for the prison system.
That's right.
Because he's a model.
He's a model citizen in there.
Yeah.
He's in the honor area. I mean, he's showing other inmates that you can behave well.
Yeah. And
It's a
it
great
works-
model in the prison.
Works for you.
Now, but was he sorry? Well, he made a final public statement.
Okay.
What we'll do is take a quick break. When we come back, I'll share with you quotes from that final statement, and then we'll try to analyze together how we as Christians ought to think through cases like this, where the core question becomes, I mean, yeah, there's some legal issues, but has he been rehabilitated? And if he has, should that matter in these situations? 440-546-2255.
Pastors have to make tons of decisions, including what to do to meet healthcare needs for themselves and their staff. Christian Healthcare Ministries specializes in making healthcare decisions easy and affordable. Not insurance, but a health cost sharing ministry for over 40 years. CHM opens the door for individuals, families, and yes, pastors to be a part of a biblical way to meet medical bills. Get more information and answers to your questions at chministries.org/Moody. That's chministries.org/Moody.
India Partners works to stop human trafficking, and a partnership in that work is Moody Radio. When you help rescue a girl from the red light districts of Mumbai, India, you are standing up to injustice and living out Psalm 82. It says, "Defend the weak and the fatherless, uphold the cause of the poor and oppressed." Now keep that in mind as you hear what happened to Pallavi, who was trafficked and sold at 14 years old.
She took me to a place, I don't know where, and there were a lot of men, and there is no way out.
For 8 years, sometimes as often as 15 times a day, Pallavi was abused.
Morning they used to come, afternoon they used to come, like a commodity.
So let's go right back to Psalm 82. Defend the weak and the fatherless, uphold the cause of the poor and oppressed. Learn how you can be part of saving, maybe even changing, a young girl's life today. Go to indiapartners.org/Moody. That's indiapartners.org/Moody.
This week on the Car Seat Questions podcast, we'll go in depth about the meaning and importance of grace with our guest, Scott Lessing. You do not want to miss this one.
Find the Car Seat Questions podcast on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform.
Helping you take the next step in your walk with Jesus. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
650 WCRF, really interesting case, I think, for Christians to consider, as my heart has been softened to the issue of incarceration in recent years. Story out of Missouri. Inmate Brian Dorsey was executed on Tuesday evening. And just hours earlier, he heard from the Supreme Court, they denied any sort of stay of execution. The governor of Missouri denied his plea for clemency, in spite of the fact that 70 employees in the prison where he was incarcerated in Missouri and a former warden wrote letters saying he's rehabilitated and pled and just pleaded with them to not execute him, allow him to live out his days in prison, not let him out of the prison.
Right.
Allow him to live in prison. Now, his crime was horrific. He was a drug addict. He was in a psychotic state of sorts, hadn't slept for 72 hours on a cocaine bender, murdered his cousin and the cousin's spouse, leaving a 4-year-old. It's tragic.
And the shame of it is they were showing him grace and love by saying, okay, you're hiding out from drug dealers trying to kill you because you've racked up such a big bill.
Mm-hmm.
Come hide at our house and we'll take care of you.
Right.
And that's how he repaid him.
It's egregious.
Yeah.
It's despicable. And yet, at the same time, his lawyers had said that he's received very subpar representation. And it seems like that's the case in some respects.
Yeah.
So he had a final statement. I mean, because I think the last layer of question on this, at least in what we can cover on the show, is, was he sorry? Was he repentant? Might have been nice.
Yeah. And this is at the end before his execution, not
correct
during his trial.
Correct.
Okay.
So hours before he was executed, his attorneys released a handwritten statement in which he said he was, quote, truly, deeply, overwhelmingly sorry. He went on to say, words cannot hold the just weight of my guilt and shame. To the victims' families, he said, I still love you. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I'm sorry I hurt them and you. Then he addressed his family, friends, and supporters. He said, I'm grateful for you. I have peace in my heart, in large part because of you. To all sides of this sentence, I carry no ill will or anger, only acceptance and understanding. What do you make of that?
It's really powerful, and I'm glad he did that. But part of me is like, I'm wondering if there's any indication that he was sorry or another formal written statement before it was like his execution day. Because, like Ron said, it's really easy to be sorry for a lot of things when you're facing death in a couple hours. I'm not saying he's not sorry, but I think it maybe would have carried more weight had he issued it earlier.
Yeah, and I don't have information as to whether or not he has. I don't know. So what do we make of this? Because here's the deal. I don't know that there's a mechanism for anyone to say, this prisoner's been rehabilitated. We need to adjust sentencing in some way.
Right.
Because isn't that, maybe it's not the goal. Isn't that our hope as a society, that when someone is released from prison, that they're a changed person that will no longer commit crime?
Depends on who you're talking to.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Some people would say, no, lock him up and throw away the key. We don't care what happens to him after that. And others would, I think, advocate for what you're referring to, which is more of a rehabilitation-based model, and what Scott advocates for, where they could hopefully one day be reintroduced to society.
Do you think there's a Christian argument for the lock him up and throw away the key? Who cares what it's like in there?
I don't think so, because I think it's Tim Keller said, if not for the grace of God, there go I. I think our goal should always be to try to turn people to Jesus. And I don't have really strong opinions one way or the other on the death penalty, but the thing I always come back to is, if we're killing someone, we're potentially depriving them of the opportunity to meet Jesus if they haven't yet.
Right. Yeah. I'm open to receiving a solid argument on it, but I'm with you. I can't imagine a scenario where someone who loves Jesus and has received the mercy that they didn't deserve from the Lord Jesus for the sins they committed and are going to heaven in spite of what they've done, that while they were yet a sinner, Christ died for them. I don't know how one could hold that position of, who cares? Keep them in there. It doesn't matter. Like, we're supposed to walk in tension of justice and mercy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't fall face first into mercy and be like, let everyone out. Well, no. I mean, there's consequences for crimes. No question. Romans 13 makes that very clear. And yet I don't think you can fall heavily on the face biblically either of just all justice. And then I have a hard time, even when you look at, like, Jesus was all about mercy. He was all about it.
Yes, he so often could have issued justice and judgment on a lot of people. Instead, he wanted them to think and to come to a better understanding. The Pharisees and Sadducees, they were trying to trap him all the time with little tidbits of the law, and he wanted them to think beyond that. Look at what the law is pointing to. It's pointing to me. Here I am. I've been pointed at from the entire of Scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am right in front of you, and you don't see me.
And I am going to go and take the punishment you deserve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking the death penalty you deserve. Now, of course, he also said in Luke 6, be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said in Matthew 5, blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. To the people who got mad at Jesus for hanging out with tax collectors and sinners at Matthew's house, he said, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. Lamentations 3 says, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Psalm 23, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Like the core aspect of the gospel is mercy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at call me crazy. I look at this story and I say, why in the world do we not have a mechanism in our society to be able to take a guy on death row who everyone in the prison that's not incarcerated, 70 people say is rehabilitated, and release, not him, the death penalty.
Right.
And say, okay, yeah, but where's the mechanism for this?
I don't know. That may be why the Supreme Court and even the governor didn't reverse or make a change. They may not have felt like it was within their scope of authority. And I know the Supreme Court's pretty particular about not wanting to be, creating legislation. They just act on what's there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think we need to keep that in mind, depending on which side you fall on this issue, before we start blaming the governor or the Supreme Court.
I totally agree with that. In fact, I'm not necessarily casting judgment on them, because I have a hard time with the governor, because those who are executives in government authority in the executive branch, they really don't have any guardrails on offering pardons and clemency. They can do what they want. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, there could be extenuating circumstances. And you're right too, Ron, where if there was a legal mechanism where someone's rehabilitated and that would enable them to have a reduced sentence, if that was something that was in the law, the Supreme Court probably would have taken the case and let him go. Not let him go, but let him not be executed.
Right.
I don't know. It kind of breaks my heart that there's no mechanism for what to do with someone who's rehabilitated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how long? And what, I mean, I don't know. Talk me off a ledge, sorry. Tell me when I'm wrong here.
Not sure I can.
Ron?
I'm with you. I think there should be a mechanism for that.
Especially with death penalty.
Right. Because we're not saying let him go. I get frustrated by some of that where, a prisoner will be let go and I'm not sure he's rehabilitated and ready to be in society. But in this case, all you're saying is don't kill him. Let him continue to be an upright citizen within the walls of his correctional facility and, a model to the other incarcerated folks there to see what can happen if you obey the rules. Good things can happen to you even within the walls.
Yeah, and my heart even goes further, and forgive me for leaning, I'm not falling face first on mercy, but my bias is leaning towards mercy because I've received so much of it from the Lord. It's hard for me to not do it. Mm-hmm. I even wonder about those who are given very long sentences. Like, let's just say you're given a life sentence and you're totally rehabilitated, unquestionably. How many years is enough? What if they've been in for 20? Is that enough for you? Is that 30? I wish we had a mechanism where mercy could be enacted in some sort of just way. What is it? I don't know. I'm not in charge of all that. But maybe I'm crazy. And you could talk about that on Friday.
Yeah, you're not going to be here. Thanks for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll just set that on the table and leave.
Topic 1 for Follow-Up Friday. Is Brian crazy?
440-546-2255. If you want more information, there's articles all over the place about the execution of Brian Dorsey. I pray he knew the Lord. His final statement has hints at it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I hope he knew the Lord. It's 7:01 coming up in just a few minutes here. Our friend, he's a professor and a pastor, professor at Moody Bible Institute, Cisco Cotto, wants to talk about why the Old Testament is so important.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
President Biden is considering Australia's request to drop the U.S. prosecution of Julian Assange. It's 7:02. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. The WikiLeaks founder was indicted on 17 espionage charges after publishing classified U.S. documents back in 2010. The U.S. says Assange put lives at risk through the publication of those materials. The city of Cleveland is joining with 13 other Ohio cities in a lawsuit challenging the state's ability to regulate the sale of tobacco on a local level. In a statement, Mayor Justin Bibb says the lawsuit represents a united front in standing up for what is morally right and is an imperative next step to ensure that we are prioritizing the health of Ohioans above profits for tobacco industry. And multiple injuries are being reported after an RTA bus was involved in a head-on collision in Cleveland. The crash happened early Wednesday morning on Lakeshore Boulevard near Windward Road when an SUV crossed the center line and hit the bus head-on. I'll have sports and weather in just a moment.
You don't have to put your life on hold to get your degree from Moody Bible Institute. Moody offers flexible online classes that feature a unique ministry-focused education. Study the Bible and theology anytime, anywhere. You'll benefit from the world-respected faculty and a connection with classmates from around the globe. Invest in your future and get your bachelor's or master's degree from Moody Online. Learn more at moody.edu/online. That's moody.edu/online.
In sports, the Cavaliers blew out the Grizzlies 110-98. The Guardians won their series against the White Sox in extra inning walk-off fashion, 7-6. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Showers likely, then showers and possibly a thunderstorm this afternoon. Highs near 67 degrees. At last check, light rain across most of the listening area. 59 degrees in Cleveland, 57 in Akron and Canton, 59 degrees in Ashtabula.
It's time for your moron moment.
Experts say that 80% of the brain is built by the age of 3. And only 18% of economically disadvantaged children enter the classroom ready to learn, meaning 82% are not ready for kindergarten. Those facts prompted the creation of Live Inspired, a ministry to serve under-resourced families by building language-rich homes and promoting positive parent-child interactions, thereby developing earlier literacy and social skills necessary for school readiness. If you're going to the banquet tonight, I'll see you there. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 7:05. With Moody Radio News, I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Mornings with Brian on WCRF. He's back. Our friend and regular contributor, Cisco Cotto, a professor of pastoral studies at Moody Bible Institute, also a morning host on WBBM News Radio in Chicago. Welcome back, Cisco.
I don't know, the way you said that, it almost sounded like a warning for all of our friends.
Well,
like, oh no, he's back.
If the shoe fits, I mean. But no, I'm glad to have you back. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the Old Testament today and Old Testament stories. Great stories in there. First question, you got to pick one. Do you have a favorite Old Testament story? And don't think like, super spiritual. Think more like this is a crazy, exciting story.
Oh, Brian, it's an impossible question for me to answer. How in the world can I possibly pick? This semester at Moody Bible Institute here in Chicago, where I teach, and I always have to give the little disclaimer. We would love for you to come and study with us at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. Go to moody.edu for more information. I'd love for you to study with me. This semester, I am teaching a narrative messages class. It's how to preach these stories of the Bible, in the Old Testament especially. And so we're going through all these great stories in Genesis and Exodus and the stories of David and Samuel. And it's just so good. Each of them is so rich. And so if you ask me to pick one, I don't know. It's like someone saying, your favorite book of the Bible. They're all so great. I don't know. You're going to make me pick one, aren't you?
Yeah, you have a bunch of children. Which is your favorite? Come on. We're live on the radio.
Yes,
Please pick one.
But that's how it sounds. It sounds like, yes, which is your favorite child, right? And the answer is, well, it depends on how they're behaving today, right?
Okay, so I'll go first. I have one of my obscure favorites is a guy, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. You can fix this for me. Ehud, the left-handed guy.
Oh, Ehud.
Ehud. I love that guy. He sneaks in.
Yes.
He stabs the rotund king, sneaks out the toilet.
King Eglon.
Yes. That's a great story.
Ehud the lefty. You have a king that is really large, so large that they included that in the story. And Ehud is a man who, because he's left-handed and no one was, he is able to get the upper hand and kill the king.
It's a great story. It's unexpected. Yeah. It's exciting. I also would tell you a close second is the actual Samson story, not the one we tell children.
The actual Samson? What about the actual Jonah story? Not the one we tell children. Every time I talk about Jonah, I have to say, it's not about a fish. It's really not about a fish.
It's not about that. That's true, though, right? I mean, honestly, a lot of those Old Testament stories we sanitize for kids, but it takes a lot of the meaning away.
Yeah, we sanitize them. I'm a big fan of Veggie Tales. Okay, I really am. I think they've done great work. But I always love how when it comes to the Esther story, where you have Haman, the wicked Haman, who ends up being hanged to death. In the VeggieTales story, he gets sent off to the island of perpetual tickling. Because we can't tell the kids that he gets hanged from the gallows that he set up. We can't tell the kids that. So it's, he's going to the island of perpetual tickling.
It sounds just as bad.
I mean, so creative. It might be worse, frankly, because it's perpetual. Which is great creativity, and I love those guys. I really do. So if I have to pick a story, I would say the overall Jonah story is my favorite. I like so many of them. It's really, it's tough to pick. We're going through all the different Jacob stories right now. I mean, it's just so much good stuff. But the Jonah story is so rich. The dialogue is so gripping. You have a man who in theory is a man of God, and yet he's mad because God is going to save these other people. I mean, the whole thing is just so dramatic, and it leaves you hanging at the end. It really leaves you wondering, hey, wait, what should we do here? What would I do here? And so, so I would say the overall Jonah stories is probably my favorite.
And you left out the fish. Thanks a lot.
The fish is nothing. I mean, okay, it looks good in the little kitty pictures, but the fish is one, we don't know it's a whale. Probably was, but it's a pretty big fish. But we don't know what it just says a great fish. The fish is only there to highlight what God is doing in Jonah. To highlight how God is at work in Jonah. And then ultimately you push it forward and you say this is pointing us to a certain someone else who is going to be in a very dark cavern for 3 days.
See, there it is.
Only to come out, right? I mean, so there's more to it than that, but it's really not about a fish.
So then, with all that in mind, we're having fun with this, but in all seriousness, what do we need to remember about reading these Old Testament stories? Because I think you and I share that silly frustration that we sanitize for kids, but that changes the whole deal. Like, so we're reading a hard story. Like, let's just say this Samson story. Wow, that's a tough story. A terrible ending. It's gruesome. He had great hair, but it's gruesome. So how do we even read these things?
So when it comes to reading them, okay, we'll get to what do you do with some of those. There's a longtime professor named Dale Ralph Davis. He talks about those sorts of stories as the nasties. These stories that are so difficult, so thorny. How do we deal with it? We skip over those. What do we do with those? Before we get to that, let's just talk about how we read these stories in the first place, because I think that's where a lot of us go wrong, myself at times included. We look at these stories and they're so beautiful and they're so impactful and the emotion is just powerful. And what we tend to do, because we are human beings who, I'm sorry, can be self-centered, right, is we look at the text and we see the characters and we immediately start saying, where am I in here?
Right.
How does this relate to me? How is this showing me in this text? And so the first thing that we have to remember about all Scripture, but really a good reminder about these Old Testament stories in particular, is ultimately they are about God. They are about God revealing who He is. They're about God revealing who we are in light of Him, how we should respond to Him, how we should live in light of who He is. They are God's revelation to us about Himself. And so first and foremost, when we go to these Old Testament stories, the first question that we should be asking is, what does this tell me about God? What does it tell me about His character? What does it tell me about His activity? What does it tell me about what He is doing in the world around us throughout human history? Who is this God and what is He doing? And I think if we start there, we're getting to the real reason God has given us these stories. And then slowly but surely we work through, okay, so now how do we preach the story about the overweight king who got stabbed?
Right.
How do we preach the story about the guy who essentially has everything collapse on top of him? How do we preach these stories? Even David and Goliath, pretty graphic there. Doesn't end up very well for Goliath.
No. Well,
and so how do we even preach that to young kids?
Well, and on top of that, you bring up, we try to insert ourselves in the story. Curiously, I always picture myself as the hero.
Really?
Yeah.
You're not Eglon. You're not King Eglon.
No, I'm left-handed, by the way, which makes that one a little easier.
Ehud.
That's right. That's right. But okay, it's time for us to take a quick break. You're listening to Mornings with Brian on WCRF. Our guest is Cisco Cotto, a professor of pastoral studies at Moody Bible Institute, also morning show host on WBBM News Radio in Chicago. When we come back from this break, let's keep talking about those Old Testament stories we know and love, even some of the harder ones to talk about. What do we do with the nasties, as he indicated earlier? We'll talk about that in just a minute.
The words you are about to hear are taken from letters sent in by members of the Trinity Debt Management Program.
Dear Trinity, today I'm making my final credit card payment.
Before I came to you, I was in a constant state of anxiety and panic, but now there is hope for my family's financial future.
Working with Trinity made me understand that I'm not alone.
You really do help people.
Your kindness will never be forgotten.
Without Trinity support, I would not have achieved my lifelong goal of becoming debt-free.
We saved a lot on interest and penalties, of course, but the reward was the gift of human kindness.
Trinity has carried me through a very difficult time in my life. You're amazing.
I used to feel so anxious and hopeless. Now I feel grace and peace.
God bless Trinity as you continue to help others become debt-free.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-659-9838. That's 1-800-659-9838.
Ever wondered if there's a way for Christians to meet their healthcare costs affordably and efficiently? A biblical lifestyle alternative to traditional healthcare options? The answer is Christian Healthcare Ministries. They've enabled believers to live out their faith while embracing a voluntary health cost ministry for over 40 years. It all starts with a visit to chministries.org/Moody to see how CHM meets values and healthcare costs. Get more information and have your questions answered at chministries.org/Moody.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
This is WCRF. You're listening once again to Mornings with Brian. Our good friend Cisco Cotto, a professor of pastoral studies at Moody Bible Institute with us. Also a morning show host at WBBM News Radio in Chicago. We're talking about those Old Testament stories that are so thrilling, so engaging. How do we read them properly? We've been through that a bit with him already here before the break. The one that people want to really talk about, though, I'm sure, is what you characterized, as one expert said, are the nasties. The stories that have gruesome endings are really hard to just grapple with. How do we handle those?
You have stories, Brian, of adultery, murder, pretty graphic warfare. You have stories of assault. You have stories that are very almost lurid in how they are described. And to our modern eyes and ears, they can really go, whoa, they can make us sort of go back on our heels. Like, what's going on here? This is awkward. I don't like this very much. And then we can wonder, do I as a pastor, do I preach this on Sunday morning? If I'm not the preacher, do I want to hear this story explained?
Right.
We get to the kids. How in the world do we handle this with kids? And what too often ends up happening is we just skip over them altogether.
Right.
They're uncomfortable. We don't know what to do with it. We're just going to skip over those. And so the reminder, I have to remind myself of this, and I remind all of our friends, this is God's word to us. And so don't make light of it. Don't think that it's a throwaway. Don't skip over it. God, in his perfect wisdom, in his perfect sovereignty, gave us each and every one of these stories. The ones that we like, David defeats Goliath. Yes, this is so great. The ones that we don't like, David commits adultery and has a guy murdered.
Right.
God has given us all of those stories to, as we talked about earlier, to reveal something about himself and his activities and how we should relate to him and relate in the world around us. And so if you are, for example, I know we have pastors who listen. If you are a pastor, maybe the week before you give a little warning, you let parents know, this is coming so that they can decide whether or not they want the child in the service for that. But one of the reasons I'm a big advocate of preaching through books of the Bible as churches and going through whole books of the Bible is because it doesn't allow you to skip over these like you would if you were just moving around. We have to grapple with these. What is God showing us through each of these stories? The David story of adultery and murder, you get to the end, and how is David going to respond when he's confronted over his sin? How is the man who is described as a man after God's own heart, how is he going to respond? And we see that he is broken and he is repentant. And we get this sense from the Lord that he is the God of second chances. He is the God who continues working in his people. He is the God who, in his kindness, brings his people to repentance and restores his people. So there's beautiful things about God, and there's more to that story than that. But the point is we get this sense of, man, we miss out if we skip over these stories.
Now, to what extent as well do we do our kids a disservice when we hyper sanitize the stories? Like Samson is suddenly a guy with great hair, is really strong, like a superhero. Noah built a cool boat. There's some animals there. Rainbow. Are we doing them a disservice?
You don't want to talk to the kids about the people, screaming for their lives as the floodwaters are rising.
Right. I mean, we totally ignored that part, and now it's horrifying to kids. But I mean, I think we're essentially, are we not changing the story itself and its meaning when we do that?
Yeah, I mean, so you don't, I explain this, because you have, for example, the story of Jacob and Leah and Rachel. So Jacob wants a wife. Jacob is deceived, and Jacob's the deceiver. So this is just a fascinating story here. The deceiver is deceived, and he is given the wife that he doesn't want, Leah. And then in exchange for some more work, he is given the wife that he actually wants, Rachel. And now we have a childbearing competition that goes on.
Right.
Who can bear the most? Who can finally get the love of the man? Who can finally show that they're somehow worth something? In the case of Rachel, she just wants any kid. She's barren, and she just wants a child. And so Leah has 4 kids, and then you have a servant or a slave. Oh, she's got a couple of kids, and you got another servant or slave who's got a couple of kids, and Leah has some more kids. And eventually you have Rachel, who has 2 children, Joseph and Benjamin. And so throughout this whole episode, how do you explain to kids that this man is sleeping with this woman and this woman and this woman, and he's back with that woman, and he's back with this woman? I think, and I owe a great deal to a great Moody professor. Her name is Elizabeth Smith. I know you talk with her on the air.
Yes.
She's fantastic. She's an education specialist. She trains teachers, among other things. She trains teachers here at Moody Bible Institute. And one of the things that she showed me is the resilience of children, the necessity of sharing with them the truths of life as they are relayed in the Bible. So if you're talking about that story and you want to have children who have a holy biblical sexual ethic, you want to raise them to understand God's ways, you talk about that story. So this thing that is supposed to be between one man and one woman, is this guy doing this the right way? Is this the way that this is supposed to go? It doesn't mean you have to be graphic. Obviously, we don't want to be graphic.
Right.
When talking to the children about this. But you say, yeah, so this man has this wife, and he makes children with her, and then he goes, this woman over here, he makes children with her, and then this woman and this woman. How do you think God feels about that? You think that that's God's best? You think that's what God wants? So you're talking about the story, not getting into the tawdry details necessarily, the specifics and that sort of thing. You don't want to be that way, but you're laying out these life situations for them. And Elizabeth Smith was very helpful to go, hey, kids are going to have to deal with this. Other people are going to be talking with your children about these things. The world does not care about your sensitivities. And so if we approach them from the Scripture, we relay the truth of the Scripture to kids, we help them to reason through and from the Scriptures, then we're forming them. Then we're really getting them on the path to understanding who God is and what he wants from us.
Excellent advice, once again, from our good friend Cisco Cotto, a professor of pastoral studies at Moody Bible Institute. And he's also a morning show host at WBBM News Radio in Chicago. Of course, don't listen to their show. Keep it right here, but you could probably go find him online or something. No offense, Cisco. So if folks
That's all right. Is it bad that I would rather listen to you too? Is that bad?
I don't blame you for that. I don't blame you for that. But now, okay, so if somebody wants to learn more about Moody or about Professor Cisco Cotto, how do they do that?
All you have to do is go to moody.edu, moody.edu. You can find out whether in person here in Chicago or online how you can come and study with us.
Dr. Tony Evans says too many Christians think that stewardship is just another word for fundraising, but it's really about something much bigger, something he'll explain to us today as we spend 2 minutes with Tony.
Owners of property have management companies that manage the well-being of their property for them. God created mankind to manage what he owns. This management crew, mankind, male and female, has been duly tasked with protecting and expanding the assets of the owner. Stewardship is protecting and expanding the assets of another. Everybody in here has a bank, a place where you deposit resources. You do it for two reasons. To put it in a safe place. That's why you don't keep enormous amounts of money under your mattress, because it may not be safe. But there is another job, and that is to expand it. That's why you want to know how much interest will you get on your money, because you don't just want them to protect it, you want them to expand it. That is, to make more of it than you started with. So you are part of I'll put it in business terms, you're part of an association of managers to protect and expand the assets of another. Because God is expecting his people to expand what he got started in the garden throughout all of his creation. That's what God is after.
If it's time to do some Christian management training, Tony can help. Check out a CD series, Kingdom Stewardship, available online at tonyevans.org. Then join us next time for 2 Minutes with Tony.
Blessed are the pure in heart, not externally pure or self-righteous. This beatitude Jesus spoke completely flipped the religious establishment upside down. Today, many believe if you do good enough, you might get into heaven or gain inner peace, but it's all accomplished by you. The Bible says our best deeds are but filthy rags before God. Only God can make you pure through his Son, Jesus Christ. Think about that today.
They say family knows you best. Here's Brian's older brother with a message for you.
Does it seem like your son or daughter will just not stop talking? My little brother is proof that not all hope is lost.
It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
7:36. That's Zach Williams here on WCRF Mornings with Brian. Live stream listeners would have noticed two things at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're on the live stream, you know how fun this is. You get to see everything happening. Hello. And you can also go check out past programs. It's the best place to go listen back to something.
Right.
And watch back. You can just see how curiously handsome Ron Eastwood really is.
At least curious looking.
And, I mean, how could Daria be any more lovely? Watch the live stream. That's how you can find out. So in this case, you would have noticed the last half hour, that conversation with Pastor Cotto and Professor Cotto, whatever you want to call him, that was recorded. So you did not see us. But now that you're looking at the live stream, you'll notice, what do you notice about my shirt, Daria? Do you see anything there?
It's a collared shirt.
You don't see the wet spots?
Not from here. I've got a monitor blocking my view.
Ron, do you see it? It looks all wet, doesn't it?
I can't tell from here.
Oh, good. Well, on the live stream, I hope you can see it. And I just want to point it out so people aren't wondering what's wrong with him. Is he sweating?
What did you do?
I'm not sweating that bad. It's not that hot in here.
You do work hard, though.
I do work, yes.
If our boss is watching, Brian works
Maybe it
very
is sweat
hard.
then. I don't. Maybe it is. No, I don't. I'm not one of the guys that sweats just thinking. That's not me.
So what happened?
I minding my own business.
Uh-huh.
Right. Probably not.
Yeah, thank you. Had my coffee in my hand, and do you ever, like in a mug, one of those travel mugs that's like all covered? Do you ever kind of give it a little bit of a shake to see, is there anything in there?
I've done that.
You do that?
Mm-hmm.
I happened to do it in a way where the spout was facing me, and it happened to just. I'm talking to our engineer Alan Perry, and just piles of coffee flew all over my shirt.
Yes, I have had things like that. And you just wonder, how could the physics of this possibly work out?
Yeah. I thought this was supposed to be a covered cup.
Yeah. It must be a special dispensation of grace.
Oh, gosh. So now, yeah, I know I'm all wet, okay? In a lot of ways. As we're shifting gears, there's no way to shift gears away from my weird-looking shirt at the moment. But I will say that I found a challenging issue facing the church that isn't often discussed. Many people are facing this kind of thing right now. Sarah and I began thinking about it. It's exemplified in the Wall Street Journal by a story covered pretty extensively by about a woman named Lori Hanasco from Pittsburgh. Now, Lori, it says, even before the recent medical problems, Lori was caring for her parents. She made big trays of lasagna so they had leftovers to freeze, cleaned their house weekly, and took them to the doctors. I'm alone, she said. There's no one else to do it. Why? She's an only child.
Okay.
And her parents are aging. Her husband, Walter, often pitches in. They don't have any kids, by the way. Her husband, Walter, pitches in, but she feels it's her responsibility because it's her parents.
Right.
To take the bulk of it. Their care became more consuming as their health deteriorated. Lori's mom, who had a heart attack a decade ago, has macular degeneration and walks with a cane. Her father was diagnosed with cognitive impairment, and he frequently falls. Years ago, Lori bought her parents a book about the importance of making wills and advance directives.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, she found that book in a drawer, still in its protective wrapper. Her parents do not have a will and do not have a power of attorney set up for her.
Uh-oh. That's cruising for a bruising.
Things unraveled on December 26th when her mom called saying her dad fell outside. After 3 weeks in skilled nursing care because he broke his hip, she moved him into a private pay personal care home for additional physical therapy and memory care. It costs $3,000 a month, and it exceeds her parents' monthly income. By the way, they do not qualify for veterans benefits or Medicaid. Lori used her savings to pay for March. She visits them daily, gives him a shave on the weekends. And if that weren't enough, 2 weeks after her dad went into personal care, Lori's phone rang just before midnight. Her mother said she'd fallen and couldn't get up. Lori rushed over, but was unable to lift her mom, who was then taken to the hospital. And she remains under observation. Lori says the doctors have told her that her mother can't live on her own. Lori says she can't safely take care of her at her house, and the family can't afford in-home care, which averages about $18 an hour locally in her area. Her mom says she doesn't want or need any help because people in that phase of life just don't have the clear perspective.
Right.
They get stubborn.
So she talked to a hospital social worker, connected her to an elder care attorney to discuss her options. But her mom is calling, leaving threatening messages. She's going to leave the hospital, demanding she bring her things. At night, her mind races. Like, where's her mom going to go? How's she going to pay for all this?
Mm-hmm.
She's an only child.
Mm.
To make it even more devastating, in a larger sense, this type of family is becoming more common, with about 22% of women at the end of their childbearing years having an only child. That's double what it was in 1976, according to a 2015 Pew Research Center report.
Mm-hmm.
We have double the number of families with one child.
Yeah, it used to be most common were 2 or 3 children.
And now it's twice as likely that you're going to have couples with one child. Only children have no siblings to share responsibility of caring for aging parents, and the isolation can take its toll emotionally and financially. Did you know that family caregivers average about $7,200 a month, according to AARP? Like if
Wow.
you're $7,200 a month, $7,200 a year is the average. That's a big difference. $7,200 a year for family caregivers. This is a significant problem.
And just to clarify, I guess, you could have more siblings and still be in that only child situation, because there are children who just are, for whatever reason, obsessed with their job, or they've moved across country and they feel like, I can't come back and be part of the help, and just basically don't give any help
That's
to
right.
mom and dad. So the one sibling steps up and bears the entire burden.
Yeah, I've got a buddy locally who encountered this. He's got a couple of siblings, and none of them get involved.
Mm-hmm.
He's on his own, caring for his mom, essentially.
But they will show up at the reading of the will.
And they do show up to complain and be accusatory.
Yeah.
Sarah and I are at our parents are in their 70s. They're very healthy, but we feel guilty in some sense because we live so far away. We each have one sibling, and they live very close to our parents. But in some sense, I think the church has some, like, we're going to face this in our congregations. We're going to have people who are bearing the burden of caring for their elderly parents alone as an only child, and they can't afford it. And who can possibly handle the emotional toll of someone like what Lori has to do?
Right.
Well, you're also seeing a rise in people just choosing not to have children at all. So you're going to end up with elderly people with no one to care for them.
Mm-hmm.
It does make an interesting sideways argument for having a little bit more kids than the average, doesn't it?
Increasing your odds that one of them will like you enough to care for you.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like, as stressful and expensive as it is to have 5 kids, Sarah and I have pretty good odds that someone's going to be, like, still around to care for us.
Right.
But there maybe have to be giant ministry opportunity developing here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not just volunteering for, like, respite care and help, but we're going to have families in our churches that need financial support.
That's true.
It's so expensive, and not everybody has the ability to take as much as they might want to take their parent into their home.
Yeah, so what do you do in this case of Lori, who she can't care for her parents in her home? They don't qualify for Medicaid or veterans benefits. She's got to pay for it all out of pocket.
Mm-hmm. I would ask around, like, your city or county governments, and try to find if there are some other sources of financial assistance, and do check with your church. If you are established in a church, check in with them and let them know your situation. If you're in a woman's Bible study, chances are they know your situation and they're already lining up to help you. But if not, my experience is that women's Bible studies are the best for fellowship and help in situations like that.
My grandparents go to a church that they have a ministry that delivers fresh fruit to older people in the congregation.
Oh, I like that.
To make sure they're eating well and to sort of visit with them if they don't get out enough.
Nice. It's a automatic check-in that they're not going to object to.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. Now, I would also say that for anyone listening, but particularly those 60 and above, you better get a will, and a medical and a durable power of attorney. Take care of these things now.
Yeah, I need to check up on ours. I'm pretty sure our last update of the will was when the kids were all living at home. And so it was like, who will take care of the children in the event that we're both gone? Those kind of things are irrelevant now, and there's a lot of different things that should be added.
Sarah and I just updated ours for a variety of reasons. But I got to tell you, like I've seen this so often where people are stuck caring for elderly parents, but they have no authority whatsoever to go into their bank account to help use some of the parents' money.
Mm-hmm. For them.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not like you're trying to tap their income for your needs or your wants, but you're trying to help them pay for their needs, and you can't help.
And then you also end up hearing about people who get a will and or a power of attorney, but refuse to share any information about it with their children.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, I've had friends encounter this. No, where do you keep the will? I'm not telling you that. What's in it? Well, you're just trying to get all my money. Or no, you can't. Would you stop it?
Right. If you think I'm worthy of being your designated power of attorney, and yet you don't trust me to see it now, how, are you sure you trust me at all? Maybe you should have someone else be your power of attorney who you do trust.
That's right. And don't wait till you're sick, because then you won't be able to care for it.
Right.
Do it now, do it now, do it now, so that these things don't happen. And then again, as the number of people increase that are all alone to care for their elderly parents, I think the church is going to have to address this at some point soon.
Yeah. And if you're in a church that has a ministry like that, text in or write into us and let us know about it, because I'd be interested, for one, to know what it is they do and how they got started.
Yeah, because I can't say that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I can't say that I'm familiar with any sort of help or deliberate ministry program that gives respite to people caring for their elderly parents.
Right.
Or help or support or anything. It's a need, clearly. All right, it's 7:49, time for a quick break. When we come back, it's that time of the week, another edition of Pretend Experts.
If you're 65 or older, you know this. Seeing your healthcare costs go up and up is frustrating. And maybe you were just notified that your Medicare costs are increasing again, or you're just tired of the massive deductibles. Well, here's some good news. There's a program that can really help with this. It's MediShare 65 Plus. It's an affordable, reliable alternative. You can choose any Medicare provider. You get telehealth access anytime you need it. And MediShare 65 Plus is a low-cost option for those with Medicare Parts A and B, and it fills in the gaps where Medicare stops. MediShare is a Christian healthcare community that aligns with your faith. People actually pray for you. They encourage you, and it's proven, too. It's been going strong for over 30 years now. So call now. You can get one low monthly price for up to 10 years. You're not stuck with increasing costs. You can do something about this today. Call MediShare 65 Plus. Find out how much you can save. Call 833-59-SHARE. That's 833-59-SHARE. 833-59-SHARE.
India Partners works to stop human trafficking, and a partnership in that work is Moody Radio. When you help rescue a girl from the red light districts of Mumbai, India, you are standing up to injustice and living out Psalm 82. It says, "Defend the weak and the fatherless. Uphold the cause of the poor and oppressed." Now keep that in mind as you hear what happened to Pallavi, who was trafficked and sold at 14 years old.
She took me to a place, I don't know where, and there were a lot of men, and there is no way out.
For 8 years, sometimes as often as 15 times a day, Pallavi was abused.
Morning they used to come, afternoon they used to come, like a commodity.
So let's go right back to Psalm 82. Defend the weak and the fatherless. Uphold the cause of the poor and oppressed. Learn how you can be part of saving, maybe even changing, a young girl's life today. Go to indiapartners.org/Moody. That's indiapartners.org/Moody.
Join the conversation by call or text at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
They look at business decisions and impose their positions. Without a doubt, they know what they're talking about. It's time for Pretend Experts.
Our first story, as we evaluate business decisions, being in the biz, comes from Chicago, home of dubbers and doubles and Polish sausage. When my daughter was in a Park District class, it was a little dance group called Tiny Tots.
Okay.
The lady goes up, and now a dance from the Tiny Tots. And I just about fell over laughing. Okay, so this one comes from the company Oscar Mayer. It's coming out with a plant-based hot dog.
I'm not surprised.
I'm surprised it took them this long.
The company announced their not hot dogs that will hit shelves later this year.
Yeah.
It's a joint venture between the parent company Kraft Heinz and the Not Company.
Are they calling them not dogs?
Yeah.
Should be.
Well, I mean, not hot dogs, but...
They missed an opportunity there.
Right. Not dogs. It would be so much easier.
Yeah, and it took you like 2 seconds to come up with that.
Yeah, and
They probably hired someone.
I get paid way less than the executives at Kraft.
So, what do you think? Are you excited about the plant-based hot dog?
I would try one. I don't look forward to it as replacing hot dogs for myself, but I think it is a legitimate market that they should explore.
I won't be eating one, but with the current trends, I think they're just capitalizing on it. It'll probably pay off for them.
I just wonder why we can't have... Can we have anything left unhealthy, please?
To be fair, a plant-based hot dog is still going to be grossly unhealthy. There is all sorts of additives and chemicals in there that they need to add to make it have the texture and somewhat of the taste of a hot dog. You'd probably better off eating a regular hot dog, to be honest.
I would think so. But it's like... I mean, come on. It's anyone who's going, I feel like should have a hot dog. Are they unaware it's unhealthy?
I don't know.
Has anyone ever thought, this is a great decision. I could have a salad or a hot dog. Hot dog sounds healthier. Come on. Leave it alone.
There are some hot dogs that are all beef that are better, better meat in them.
Sure. Or all turkey. They make turkey dogs.
Oh, yeah. No, I'd eat one of those over a plant-based hot dog for health, quote-unquote, reasons any day of the week.
only because I'd like them to. We should almost create a unhealthy food aisle.
I think they already have one.
It's going to have to be extra wide.
You ever been down the Chips Ahoy aisle?
Oh, my.
I just get annoyed by this stuff, so I'm giving it a... Okay. I mean, I know why they're doing it, but it's stupid. It's dumb.
Okay.
Next story comes from New York. New York. Do you do a New York accent, Daria?
I don't.
Would you like some coffee? We could have a talk about it from New York.
It's more of a Jersey accent.
You're a Jersey accent. I thought that was pretty good. Forget about it, Daria. Forget about it.
That's a little
I'm from
better.
New York.
No, you're not.
So the Empire State Building is charging teenagers to be able to ask their date out to the prom. For $250 a couple, a promposal ticket will enable students to use huge prom letters on the 86th floor of the observatory for a photo op, along with complimentary sparkling cider to, quote, celebrate their yes. Once they have their special moment, they can make their way up to the 102nd floor observatory to take in the 360-degree views. The building says the event will go through May.
I'm just picturing some poor kid paying all this money and his date says no.
Yeah. Well,
wow.
I would think if you got to the point of saying, hey, would you go to the Empire State Building with me, she would know something's going on here. But I think it takes away the surprise, most guys aren't going to ask a girl unless they're pretty sure they've got a good chance of her saying yes.
That is correct.
Because we hate to be told no.
And if you're going to take a risk, don't do it for $250 at the top of the Empire State Building.
No.
Yeah, guys, just do the poster, get some flowers from Walmart or whatever. You don't need to do that.
Yeah, in fact, yeah. Go get a poster from the dollar store, and then do what I've discovered most young men do. They have their mom make it. You think I'm kidding?
I know you're not.
They have their mother come up with a cute little rhyme and a theme, and their mother makes the poster, and then they go and stand there and hold it.
Oh my!
Maybe she should go to prom with mom. I'm sure she'd have more fun with her than a 16-year-old boy. I'd rather go with mom.
Prom with mom, the new fad sweeping the nation.
And I'm not making this up.
I know you're not.
My sister-in-law did this for my nephew. I know that one of the little boys that took one of my daughters to prom. I know his mother made it, and it's like, roses are red, violets are blue. Take me to prom. Why don't you? Or something dumb like that.
Wow.
Why don't they just go like the olden days and you just go up and you go,
not very creative.
Hey, you want to go to prom? I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
And she goes, yes or no. The end. So dumb.
Yeah.
Promposals.
One of our former hosts had somebody ask her in the parking lot of a restaurant.
Applebee's, yeah.
Yeah. And she said, you're going to have to do better than that.
This is not good enough. It's Kathleen.
I figured it was. I've only met her twice, and I knew.
Yeah, he's like, well, you go to prom with me. She goes, no, you have to do better than this. I'm sorry, parking lot at Applebee's. That would have been pretty nice in my day.
Yeah.
Probably just took her out to dinner.
It should have at least done it in the Applebee's.
Right.
Does it really matter?
Probably not. You're 16. You know nothing.
Yeah, this is a tough one because the Empire State Building making kids pay $250. Good, fine, charge them for that if they'll pay for it. But kids doing promposals, dumb. It's a trend that needs to stop. All right.
You're very angry at that paper.
I'm having a hard time with this paper. Final story comes to us from Washington, D.C., the land of no accents that I can mimic, but a land of people that yell at each other and don't do anything.
Yep.
And get paid for it.
And get paid, yeah. Sometimes get pensions for it. There's pushback against a new item a relatively new item on school lunch menus. Consumer Reports issued a warning Tuesday saying the school cafeteria version of the popular Lunchables
I've heard of this.
Contains too much sodium. Last year, Lunchables developed 2 new versions of the cheese, meat, and cracker snacks, especially for school lunch programs. Consumer Reports says the turkey and cheddar school lunch versions contain nearly 200 more milligrams of sodium than the store-bought Lunchables. The nonprofit group says it's petitioning the USDA to remove the snacks from the school cafeteria. It seems like they're saying, feed them cardboard and rice cakes, these poor children.
We can go down a whole rabbit hole with this. I've heard of this and I have so many opinions on it, but Lunchables should not be served to school children
You don't
as
think
lunch.
So?
No.
That's right. You want more hydrogenated flour.
No,
What
it's
is it?
just it's
Nutritional
It's super
yeast.
salty processed meat, and you're gonna be hungry 5 minutes later. I remember making my mom get me a Lunchable as a kid, and going as like an 8-year-old. This is disgusting, and I'm still hungry.
Yes, and the new ones for schools are twice as much sodium.
Yeah, so they actually taste good.
They're so
like it.
bad for you. Like
Wow.
feed your children well,
Ron,
please.
Are you getting so old you don't remember school? Do you remember what they made us for lunch? The peanut butter sandwich was equal parts butter and peanut butter. That's why it tasted so good.
I don't remember buying a peanut butter sandwich.
That's what they gave the kids that forgot lunch.
Oh, okay.
That would be better than a Lunchable.
We all survived perfectly fine.
Yeah.
With very unhealthy school lunch.
If they would have opened the peanut butter sandwich and doused it with salt and then put it in, that would be the equivalent.
Don't you remember the band? Wasn't it Pink Floyd said, hey, teacher, leave those kids alone. Hey, government.
Leave those Lunchables alone.
The kid wants salty meat, give it to him. That's what I say.
Well, I'm not sure, kids, if you had more than one.
I could talk for half hour on this, so I'm just going to say no.
You want some fermented carbohydrates for the kids now?
It's fermentable carbohydrates.
And yeah, that'd probably be better than soaking in some sodium all afternoon.
Do you know I like to add salt before I even taste it?
Shame on you.
Shame on you.
You got to taste it first.
Henry Ford would not have hired you.
Really?
I thought that was Edison.
Oh, maybe it was.
What was his problem? He didn't like food that tastes good?
Some older titan of industry would take people out for dinner, to discuss things before he would hire them. And if they salted their food before they even tasted it, he would not hire them because the obvious lacking of mental capacities there that they're not even going to try the food first.
I got a job.
Well,
I don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
Well,
and
they
they're
didn't
both
take you out to
dead,
dinner
so
first.
they're not going to hire you.
I guess because you two agree, we have to give it a bell, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a buzzer because we don't like it. We agree, but we don't like it.
Well, yeah, but you agree with the government taking out the food.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So that's a bell.
Yes.
I think, would you leave the kids? Let the kids eat something unhealthy. Come on. They're kids.
I know.
Part of childhood.
They'll probably survive it just fine. I drank water out of a garden hose, and look at me now.
Can you imagine all of the contaminants in there, Ron? How did you make it?
I don't know. They went in and out, I think. Maybe they're still floating around inside of me.
They might be, along with all the gum you swallowed, probably. Remember they told you, that's going to be in there forever. Forever! I don't think that's true. It's 8:02, time to get to Ron's news. But coming up in a few minutes, the David Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group, joins us live to answer your financial questions. You got them? This is the time to call or text. Don't delay. You might not even get a chance to get your question answered. Here's the number to call or text now for your financial questions. 440-546-2255.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
For the third day in a row, a New York appeals court has refused to delay former President Trump's criminal hush money trial. It's 8:03. I'm Ronnie Swood, Moody Radio News. On Wednesday, a state Supreme Court Associate Justice took less than an hour to issue her rejection of what was at least the 11th Trump delay request in the case. Jury selection remains set for Monday in Manhattan in what would be the first ever criminal prosecution of a former president. Consumer advice website FinanceBuzz.com is out with the results of a new survey ranking the most laid-back cities across the U.S. Cleveland was the second highest-ranked Ohio city on that list, placing 39th overall. And members of a Geauga County church that was the victim of violence in a March 2023 attack have filed lawsuits against the perpetrator and other reported members of White Lives Matter Ohio. Eamon Penny threw Molotov cocktails at the Community Church of Chesterland, saying that he wanted to protect children from a drag queen story hour event that the church was scheduled to host a week later. I'll be right back with sports and weather.
We invite you to visit Moody's campus in the heart of downtown Chicago for Experience Moody, our campus visit day, on Friday, April 26th to Friday, May 3rd. Experience life as a Moody student by attending class, meeting with students and advisors, and exploring our world-class city. We're excited to welcome you to learn more about whether Moody is right for you or your student. Register to attend Experience Moody on April 26th or May 3rd at moody.edu/experience Moody.
In sports, the Cavaliers blew out the Grizzlies 110-98. The Guardians won their series against the White Sox in extra-inning walk-off fashion, 7-6. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Showers likely, then showers and possibly a thunderstorm this afternoon. Our high is going to be near 67 degrees. And at last check, light rain across the listening area, 60 degrees in Cleveland, 57 in Akron and Canton, 58 degrees in Youngstown.
It's time for your moron moment.
Experts say that 80% of the brain is built by the age of 3, and only 18% of economically disadvantaged children enter the classroom ready to learn, meaning 82% are not ready for kindergarten. Those facts prompted the creation of Live Inspired, a ministry to serve under-resourced families by building language-rich homes and promoting positive parent-child interactions. thereby developing earlier literacy skill and social skills necessary for school readiness. If you're going to be at the Live Inspired banquet tonight, I'll see you there. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 8:06 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Devine studio. It's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Opinions expressed during this program represent the opinions of the participants and is given for informational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to replace professional advice for your specific situation.
It's that time of the week. David Szfranski is here, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group, ready to answer your financial questions.
And I am a professional, Brian. It's my profession.
That's true.
To answer questions and talk about money and
for over 30 years now.
And your marriage. Whoa. Talk about your marriage.
No, he's not qualified for that.
Oh, well, you're right. I'm not qualified. My wife will attest to that.
Yeah, she would.
I am not qualified to talk about marriage.
Now, you want to get in with your financial question, this is the time to do it. 440-546-2255. And Lauren's out today. We miss her very much. She'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, whatever.
And I'll be out tomorrow.
I miss her.
I know.
I miss her, and I'm afraid of her.
Exactly. I was going to say, you be careful.
I know.
You watch
I
your
know.
mouth.
I'm getting punched again by her.
She would.
I know.
If you upset her.
That's why I'm afraid of her.
Now, Daria, of course, the lovely Daria Swisher will be asking
I'm kind
the
of
questions
afraid
today.
of Daria, too.
I don't blame you.
Should be.
I saw, it was so cute. At the, you wouldn't have believed this, at the eclipse. I saw
That thing where the sun disappeared.
Yeah.
Yes.
She blew a kiss to Jimmy.
Oh, my God.
It was so
I
cute.
do, in fact, like my husband.
It was so cute. I went,
give it time, Daria. Give it
I
time.
went, oh. She blew a kiss. She almost punched me. It was great.
Yeah. Oh, that's not. It's sweet.
Did you get to see the eclipse?
Did I see the eclipse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
They drug it out way too long. Could have made that thing happen a lot faster. You know, like you're getting. It's like taking so long to get to the eclipse. It's a little more occluded.
Yeah.
Can we just get this thing rolling?
Can we hurry it up? Yeah.
Yeah. Come on.
It's kind of like going to the doctor's office. You know, you show up for an appointment and you have to wait an hour before you actually see
In
it.
that room, you're sitting in that room. You're like, well, what should I do? I'm just sitting here. And then you go to a doctor's office and there's not good internet there. And like now I have nothing. I'm like out there.
See?
In this gown, just sitting here, freezing.
That happened to Sarah once, where she was forgotten in there wearing a gown. And at a breaking point, she got up in the gown, started walking up and down the hall. Hello?
Yeah.
Did you forget me in here? She got great service from that point forward, let me tell you.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the financial questions. 440-546-2255. We got Rita in Canton. Rita, what's your question?
Hi, good morning. I was wondering if somebody's just starting out to invest, how much would they need? 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 more? And can you roll a 401k into that first investment?
Yeah. Well, to start, you need $1 million.
Dr. Evil.
Dr. Evil. One of the things that is really exciting about investing now, and this is relatively new, just within the last couple of years.
There isn't much exciting about it, so I'm on the edge of my seat.
That's not true. That's not, Brian, growing your finances, having more money, being able to retire and give money away and support charity, and that's exciting to me.
Okay, it's exciting. So what is this thing?
You could start with as little as $25.
Really?
Yeah.
$25 is all you need to start investing.
Yeah, $25.
You could do 25 a month in what, like a Roth IRA or a
Roth, a regular,
a plop?
No, not a plop. A plop is I'm not even going to go into this with you. You're going to get me sidetracked early. You could go to a Fidelity, TD Ameritrade. A moment of silence for TD Ameritrade because they're going by the wayside. Got bought by Schwab. Schwab is in the process of ruining them, as only Schwab could do. But Schwab's not a bad company. It's just not my favorite. So
I just like the word, Schwab.
Schwab. Yeah. You wouldn't happen to have a Schwab with you, would you? Doesn't it sound like that?
It does, yes.
I'm going to use it to clean out my ear.
That's exactly what it sounds
a
like.
Schwab.
A cotton Schwab.
Schwab. But you could start with $25 a month going into some of the best mutual funds that the market has to offer. So not having a lot of money is not an excuse for not starting. And you can take an old 401k, a company that you're no longer working for. You could take that old 401k and you can move it. It's called a rollover into a regular IRA at any one of these companies or a company of your choosing. Doesn't have to be Schwab or Vanguard or Fidelity. It could be a local company that you choose. A lot of people like to sit down with somebody and get very personal advice about what they should do with their money. You're not going to get that level of service at those big companies. So I kind of like, starting out at your church, asking people in your church, well, who do you use? Is there somebody that you found to be responsive to your needs and helping you plan, do those things? Because just investing is a small part of your finances. You have to look at all the other things. There's a little bit more of a holistic approach to it, I think, that could benefit you. And so I like working local with somebody that you trust. Find somebody from church or maybe ask your pastor if there's somebody in the church that does that or refer you to somebody. But find somebody that you trust, know, and like. They don't have to be on your Christmas card list. but you shouldn't want to avoid them. That's not a good relationship.
There you go. 8:16, got a quick break in front of us. More questions for Dave Szfranski coming up, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group. You got a financial question? Now's the time. 440-546-2255.
Prayer works. Are you a new believer in Jesus? Make regular study of the Bible a main component of your growing relationship. Each page is God's timeless communication with us. Here's a prayer you can pray often to help firmly establish your love and respect for God's Word. The late Bible teacher, pastor, and author, Dr. Lehman Strauss.
Thank you, Father, for the blessings of Bible study, for these nuggets of truth that have always been there, to discover them and to apply them. Help us, Lord, to see that only Bible truth that is obeyed becomes alive and real to us. Help us to respond to thy word, we pray in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Prayer and study of God's Word provide the spiritual nutrition you need each day. Learn more at moodyradio.org/prayer.
There are more female professionals in the workforce than ever, but working women are also time-starved, stressed, and tired. If you're trying to do a million things at once and feel like you're not doing any of them well, you're not alone. Mentor and longtime corporate leader Peggy Bodie has invested her life in showing women how to thrive in the workplace. In her book, Sacred Work, Peggy shares scriptural truth, personal examples, and practical teaching, equipping you to lead with wisdom and strength. Order Sacred Work from moodybooks.org.
Okay, let's go to Helen in Brecksville. Helen, what's your question for David Szfranski?
Yes, David is my Polish king. I'm a Polish 80-year-old lady, and I just adore him. Now Brian can make fun of you all day long. Okay.
The Polish king. She's not wrong. She's not wrong.
Apparently she voted for you. That's how kingship works, as they say in government. It's 8:18. Dave Szfranski with us answering your financial questions. 440-546-2255. Let's jump to another phone call. We have Raquel on the line. Raquel, what's your question for Dave?
Good morning. Dave, how do you start an emergency fund when you're barely making ends meet?
Yeah, it's
a tough one.
Well, it's the first thing that I would do. It's like a garbage dumpster. I had this boss one time, and I'd say, "Hey, Denny, the garbage dumpster's full." And he'd say, "No, it's not. You could fit more stuff in there." I'm like, "Well, how am I going to do that, Denny?" And he'd go out there and he'd make room in the garbage dumpster, and we'd fit more stuff in. The garbage dumpster was never full to Denny. And our budgets are kind of like that too. There's always a little bit more room in our budget. Now, sometimes it is true. You got to call and get the dumpster picked up. It's full. And sometimes our budgets, we have cut everything that we can cut. But mostly when I see people, there's some things in there that we could be a little bit more efficient with. So the first place that I would start, go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was just going to say to do some saving.
Yes, some.
It's not going to be a fully funded emergency fund.
No, and when I talk about whether it's starting investing or starting your emergency fund or starting anything, I am way less concerned about the amount of money that we're doing as opposed to the habit that we're creating. So I want to create the habit of saving. I want to create that habit, even if it's just with a little bit of money every month. And it could be $5. So I just want to start the habit of saving.
Where do you make the cuts? Like, what are some common areas you see people like?
Fast food, dinners out is. Yeah, I look at some people's budget and I'll say, do you realize how much you're spending on dinners out? And that's when I look at them and I say, one of you has to get in the kitchen and cook something. Yeah. Even if it's wrong, even if it's hot dogs.
Well, and people worry about the time, but quite frankly, now with both crock pots and Instapots, you can, with zero effort, make a healthy meal.
What do you put in an Instapot?
Anything you want.
Daria, you use it a lot, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I love my Instant Pot.
Because
chicken? Can you put chicken in there?
Yeah.
And it cooks it like, you can have a roast with potatoes and stuff. You can do it like an hour.
Beef's my favorite because it's super tender.
You ever done a cat in there? Because cats could be pretty good at you cooking for a long time.
She's going to hurt you. She's a cat lady.
Oh, no.
In fact, that's what your sash will say. Cat lady.
Yeah, sure. That's great. That's great.
It's perfect. Are there other areas besides?
Good thing she found Jimmy early.
Jimmy loves cats, too.
Before it got out of hand.
Yeah, well, too late now. So besides eating out, and fast food.
Those are the two biggest. The other thing that I would say that I see that just is a budget wrecker, it's like a wrecking ball coming through your finances, is interest on consumer debt. So you have a credit card, and even if the interest rate is low, let's say 21%, this is powerfully negative to our finances. So I want to go through your budget. I want to see your budget. And then what I want to do is I want to start just putting some money. She said she's barely making ends meet. So we're going to put some money, even if it's $5 or $10 a week, we're going to put it in a savings account, because it's that habit that we're starting of saving. So when your finances improve, that habit's already established. And when I see now, as you know, Brian, we work with a lot of young athletes and entertainers and people like that.
Like me.
Yeah, exactly. You're entertaining in a weird way. Entertaining.
I thought you were going to go for athlete. But
when we shaved your beard, no, I don't associate you and the word athlete in the same sentence. I'm just kidding. I'm sure you're good at something. Checkers, maybe.
I'm still looking for it. I'll let you know.
Frisbee? Did you ever do Frisbee golf?
Yeah, I'm not great at it, but I can actually throw forehand. I can throw a Frisbee forehand. Yeah. My roommate taught me in college, in the quad. I'm not kidding.
I believe it. Right. With the wispy-haired girls?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You went to Moody, right?
No, I did not go to Moody.
What? You didn't go to Moody? I knew that.
you just wanted to get mad about it. Okay, so
we got to start. So I see these young guys, and they're like, well, I'm going to get my finances together when I get paid. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. You get your finances together now so that when you get paid, you're ready. And what happens is if you're not good when you have a little bit, you're going to be even worse when you have more. So you got to do it now.
I do appreciate that you acknowledge the significant challenge, though. There's some financial advisors that have a big platform that will really make people feel bad if they don't have an emergency fund.
I don't want to do that. I want to be uplifting and encouraging.
Yeah, and because quite frankly, there are people where it's really hard to build one, and the minute you have one emergency, it's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's a struggle. And I appreciate that you're saying just try to save something. Do the best you can.
We want to build a habit of savings. I don't want you to get discouraged if you got to go into it, because we're just going to start over again. I've had to go into my emergency fund. I have this tankless hot water heater, which is great.
They're beautiful.
Up until the minute it breaks.
Yeah,
and then it's not
beautiful.
so great.
Yeah.
And they're really expensive. And mine broke, and it was my fault it broke because I didn't clean it out. And
yeah, because of you, I had mine cleaned out last year.
Yeah, you just put these. Now it's really easy. I have it. A calendar reminder. I forgot my phone at the office last night. I walked out talking to someone, and I left my phone on the desk. And then I'm driving home, and I'm trying to make a phone call, and I'm like, "Hey Siri," nothing happens. "Hey Siri," so I'm yelling "Hey Siri" in my car, and I realized my phone must not be in the car. Like, if anybody was driving by me, they think I'm like just arguing with the air.
I couldn't find anything called car set up and find my David.
I'm sorry about that.
She's listening now.
I'm sorry.
She's listening now. She's couldn't find what you were saying.
She's the best listener ever.
Yeah.
Her and the government.
We got to get to another question.
Here we go. Hit it, cat lady.
A high yield money market. For high yield money market accounts, how much money do you typically need to open one and keep in to maintain?
The ones that I've seen they're like $500. Some of them have no minimum. They just want your money. And they're really easy to set up, Brian. They're really easy to set up. They pay about 5.4% right now. And you could get your money in and out of there as quickly as you want to. It's really, some still offer a checkbook with them, but I know that millennials and people of younger generations, they don't know what a checkbook is.
Oh, Lauren got so mad because she only needed to order checks because of Rita. Because they won't take any other type of payment because it's like apparently 1942 for them. But
we all hate her.
Yeah,
this
Rita,
is the worst system ever. And it comes out of the blue. It's like, oh, by the way, you owe us X amount of dollars. Like, who are you?
We will take telegram or personal check.
Yes. And if you don't pay us, we're taking your house. It's kind of like that. And
sakes.
It's the worst. I don't totally understand it.
Yeah.
I just know that they know who I am and they know where I live.
Yeah.
And that seems to be enough for them.
Rita, would you stop it?
Yeah.
Well, we are in the process of selling several rental houses, and we'd like to know if there's something we can do to prevent all the capital gains taxes.
Yes, there is. There's a thing called a 1031 exchange, where you could sell a property and reinvest the profits in another like property. Doesn't have to be exactly the same, but basically what you do is you push out the capital gains to some future date, which may be never, because there is such thing as it's called stepped up basis. So if you assume room temperature at some point in the future, well, you will assume room temperature at some point in the future, and we're going to put you in a box and put you in a room, and everybody's going to come by and say, oh, they look so good. Well, if they look that good, they wouldn't be in that box. So they don't look that great.
No one ever looks good in those boxes.
You know what? I'm pretty sure, I tell my wife, you're going to have a big room when I die, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be standing room only, and I'm going to look great.
Except for you. You'll be laying down. But
I'll be laying down in
story.
that box looking great. But so if you will that property to somebody, they get it at a stepped up basis, no capital gains. So
but now
there is a way to do it.
But if somebody wants cash out of the sale of the home, you can't get out of capital gains.
Well, no. There's two things in life that are really sure that they're going to happen, and that's death and taxes.
And so if you want the proceeds of the sale of a rental property, you're going to have to do it.
Well, if
or
there's
you're
a capital
breaking
gain,
the law.
if there's a capital gain. Now, what you could do is, let's say that you have some rental properties that have losses on them, and you have some that have gains. You could match up those gains and losses and net out zero, but you are selling something at a loss. And
so it would have to have lost value from when you purchased it?
Yeah, one would have to have lost
Unlikely,
value.
But possible.
Depending on where the rental property is and how long you've owned it and the cost associated with improving it, because everything that you put into that house gets your basis up. So let's say you bought the house for $100,000. You put in a new driveway, you added a garage and an in-law suite. I don't know why anybody would want their in-laws with them, but maybe you do. So you put in an in-law suite and you spent $50,000. So now your basis is $150,000.
Oh, I see.
In the house. You sell it for $125,000, you got a $25,000 loss.
Okay, makes sense.
So you could match some gains and losses.
Daria, you want to do another text question or a call? What do you want to do?
Let's do a text.
Okay.
We're updating an 8-year-old will/trust currently. We have a disabled adult daughter. Can we provide for her in the trust, or must it be a special needs trust, and what is the difference?
Well, it doesn't need to be a special needs trust, but what I would do in updating that trust, I would sit down with a trust attorney to make sure that the provisions of that trust are exactly like you want them. The reason why people do a special needs trust is because you want to keep if that child would qualify for state or government assistance, you can't have money in their name. And so a special needs trust would keep that money. A trust keeps the money technically out of that person's name, but a special needs trust is uniquely designed to do that over a long period of time. And I think I probably would sit down with a professional in that area to make sure that you're not hurting your kid by not doing the trust the exact right way. Because I have seen where you've had a person that was disabled, they had a special needs trust. They could access that money for certain things, but it didn't disqualify them from government benefits, which were very important. And so you don't want to disqualify them from government benefits if they qualify for them. So I would absolutely make sure that you're sitting down with a professional. It's worth your money to do that.
And it would seem to me that just on my surface level knowledge on this, it'd have to be a rare exception to not use the special needs trust.
Well,
right? I mean, it's there for a purpose for people with special needs.
They really need an attorney that specializes
to make that determination.
Yes. This is we kind of live. You know, when you're watching a football game and there's all these people running in and out, you know, they're like third down, everybody runs out and all these people run in.
Yeah.
It's the age of specialization. There's people that are specialized to only be in on third down. We have those guys. They're like, how often do you play? I play on third down. That's the only time I play. Wow. That's
weird.
Mm-hmm.
The best job in sports, I think, is backup quarterback. You get to wear a hat, never get hit. You carry a clipboard.
And you
it might only have
it's
got everybody's lunch order on it. You're not even paying attention to the game, right? And that's the best position in sports. But I think in finance, it's kind of the same way. We live in an age of specialization where I would get a specialist for that.
All right. Break time. We'll be right back with more financial questions for Dave Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group. 440-546-2424. 2255.
This is FEBC Today with Ed Cannon, the president of the Far East Broadcasting Company. Ed, let's talk about Pakistan today.
We don't talk about Pakistan very often, Wayne, but most people don't realize Pakistan is the 5th largest country in the world and close to 99% Muslim. It's a very difficult place to work. The government is called the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and therefore the gospel is prohibited on the radio. So FEBC has been broadcasting for decades in shortwave and social media. And we get listeners to respond frequently, like the one that I'm going to invite you to read, Wayne.
Yeah, this listener says, I'm listening daily to your program on the radio. The program Eternal Life is one of my favorites that has helped me grow with new insight and perception about the Bible and Christian religion. The Word of God is presented with much clarity and in a friendly style. Keep up the good work, please.
One of the things that our broadcasters in Pakistan do is follow up with every letter or phone call we get from listeners, which is a difficult task because there's quite a few of them. But it's the only way we can really engage listeners in a discussion about the Bible.
And then a book comes out on the
letter,
exact
Wayne,
subject
that says the Urdu and Punjabi broadcasts from FEBC are very impressive and effective, as they're very relevant to our daily life and culture. Your programs have helped us reshape and renew our lives through biblical teaching. I am convinced that FEBC podcasts have contributed a lot to my ethical and spiritual life. Thank you for sharing these beautiful programs and amazing teaching. Could I invite you all to pray for our staff in Pakistan and those listeners that when they hear the good news, they come to faith?
We will do that, Ed. Thank you very much. And thank you for listening. More information, of course, at febc.org. febc.org.
We're doing.
Thanks for listening to FEBC Today.
Is doing the 5 love languages.
You have the opportunity to listen to your favorite Christian music right now. Artists like
They're doing
Casting
the 5
Crowns,
love languages
Elevation,
book.
Maverick City, and Mercy
for
Me.
married couples.
They're the songs you know. They're the songs you love. Whether you're at home or at work, just visit the website praiseandworshipchannel.org. That's praiseandworshipchannel.org. It's non-stop Christian music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Check it out. Listen now at praiseandworshipchannel.org.
This week on the Car Seat Questions podcast, we'll go in depth about the meaning and importance of grace with our guest, Scott Lessing. You do not want to miss this one.
Find the Car Seat Questions podcast on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform.
I'm being given a gift of $20,000.
Well, for one thing, you should send a thank you card. I'm sure Hallmark has a thanks for the fat stacks of cash card.
The giver could give him $15,000 and give Moody Radio $5,000.
Yeah, I like the $15,005 to Moody Radio, but now I can afford that Hallmark card because that's the whole deal.
Yeah.
It probably even plays a song like, "We're in the money, we're in the money."
Yeah, they're charging like $6 to $8 for a card now.
I know. My wife just had a birthday and I bought a card. I'm like, can I put a down payment? Can I put this in layaway?
Yeah, it's like she'll be like, "Oh, you got me a card? No, I got you a gift."
Yeah, this
is the gift.
I'm gonna print off a card from my computer.
I only ever get the 99-cent ones anymore.
Is that okay? Oh, that's what happens to cat ladies.
They're cheaper. I write my own note. It's more personal, and it saved me $5.
Yeah.
Jimmy. What a guy.
Poor Jimmy.
He doesn't need me to spend $7 on a piece of cardboard
Don't
he's
you-
probably going to throw
Don't
away.
you love him? Don't you?
Yes,
Aren't
that's
you
why
gonna-
I wrote my own note instead of paying Hallmark to do it.
Well, I'm with Daria on this. I think you should only spend the amount of money you need to spend to get your point across. And yes, the card that I bought was like $11. And then I wrote some cheesy message in it like, I don't know, happy birthday. Right?
Love, Dave.
It's your happy birthday. Love you. Lots.
This card says it all.
XXOO, hugs and kisses, puppies, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's close enough.
I'm not the most romantic person.
You? That's shocking. 440-546-2255. What do we got next, Daria?
What are the details for Dave's upcoming event?
Oh, it's Tuesday evening in Elyria, Ohio, 6:30. I'm going to be talking. You know, I was doing the presentation. I'm just refining it, and the truth is, I could go stand out on a soapbox right now and talk for 7 hours, and probably take one breath. So it's really kind of defining just honing what is it that I want to bring to this audience to give them a piece of knowledge that they could take and apply to their lives. And I have like 30 gems that I'm going to share.
You're passing out gems?
Of knowledge, gems of knowledge.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah.
And we're going to have cookies and brownies and coffee and tea. And of course, I instructed the staff to smell everybody's armpits because deodorant's really expensive. So people are skipping deodorant. This is a real thing.
We can't do that. Yeah.
In the Wall Street Journal, you probably saw it. It wasn't above the fold. I got made fun of last week because I said above the fold.
Yeah, because you get an actual newspaper.
I do get the newspaper, yeah.
I didn't know they still did that, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a guy. I tip him at Christmas.
He also rides a horse to work. It's kind of a weird thing. And he has a carriage, not a buggy. He's carriage.
They do use that term in web design. It's what you see when you first go to the website.
Yeah,
he didn't know that. He didn't know that.
Oh,
I'm sure
he
that.
did.
Yeah, I'm sure I did too, Ron. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, so it's gonna $15. 100% of it goes to the missions trip to get people to Brazil and to fund the trip. And
so it's Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. We're not. It's not a sales conference. It's just I don't. People who come there, they're not going to be cornered and say, "Oh, you got to work with Dave." We don't care. You do what you want. You do what's in your best interest. That's what I want you to do.
So just reach out to Edgewater Investment Group.
Yeah, just call us, and there's a couple of spaces left. So
all right. What's next, Aria?
I'm retiring with the only debt being a mortgage of $75,000. With the latest inflation numbers, what should my concerns be? I have a $5,800 per month pension and $100,000 in tax-deferred account. I plan on working after retiring.
Yeah, well, with inflation, there's an inflation report. It's already come out. I don't know what it said because I turned off my iPad because it kept talking to me when I was yelling her name. Things are. I was listening to an economist from the administration the other day talk, and he said, "I don't know why people are kind of they're disjointed about the economy and inflation. They don't realize that inflation is coming down." And I was screaming in my car again. I'm like, sure. No, inflation is not coming down. The rate of inflation, yes, has come down from 9 to 5%. Mm-hmm. But it's just rising at a slightly slower pace, but it's still going up. And you have, last year was at 9%. The year before it was at 7%. Those costs are still there. And today, they're talking about the cost of home insurance and car insurance skyrocketing 20%. Food inflation is at 22%. That's 22% higher than it was 3 years ago. So what are we worried about? We're worried about are people that are living on what I call the kind of like the economic margins. They're just like somebody who was trying to start an emergency fund.
Yeah, they're barely making ends meet.
Making ends meet. Those are the people that inflation is just decimating right now. And that is until we do something about it. And, we have spent so much time talking about the Federal Reserve and Chair Powell.
I knew it was coming. I knew it.
He missed. We said this last year. He missed a golden opportunity to really help stem inflation. Instead, what they chose to do was placate the market. Now, I'm in the market. I invest for people, and I understand that. And part of me is glad that he did that. But we're living with the result of him trying to placate the market, which is, I just want to thread this needle. If I could just thread this needle. Well, they're not threading the needle. For a minute, we thought they did it. They didn't. They missed it.
So this individual, though, has $5,800 a month in a pension.
That's pretty good.
That's a pretty good pension.
Yeah.
And their only debt is a $75,000 mortgage.
Well, I'd like to know what their interest rate is, because if their interest rate is low, I'm not paying it off fast.
What's low in your mind? 3% or less?
Less than 4%.
Less than 4%. Okay. So keep making the payments.
Yeah, because you can get 5.4% in a money market right now. So you're beating that with no risk. So I could take the money that I would have paid off my house with, and I'm winning that bet because I'm making 5.4 and it's costing me 3.5 or whatever. So I have extra cash every month for not paying off my mortgage.
Well, and they might want to take a moment and be grateful to the Lord they have a pension, because there's not many Americans that have pensions anymore.
They're falling by the wayside. It's all defined contribution, which is 401k, money purchase, SEPs, things like that, where you decide what goes in and then they might match you in a 401k or 403b or something like that, 457 plan if you're a government employee. You could save a lot more money that way. It's way better, but you have to take their money. You have to take the free money. If they say, hey, we'll match you up to this percentage, you have to at least put that money in. It's free. It's not really free, but it's free. And you've got to do that. Even if the 401k stinks, you've got to take that money because it's going to be an important aspect of your retirement plan.
So this person may be fine. They may not have to worry all that much. I guess it depends on their living expenses, their have-to living
Here's
expenses.
the thing, though, that will the pension keep up with the rate of inflation that's happening right now? And my guess is if inflation continues at its current pace, which eventually we're going to get somebody who's going to say, okay, we're going to deal with this. In the 70s, in the late 70s, it was Paul Volcker. And Paul Volcker, this red-faced, sweaty, big guy, he was just decimating the market. He said, look, and he told Ronald Reagan, we're going to have to drive the market we're going to have to go into recession. And Ronald Reagan, they had these arguments all behind the scenes because the president doesn't meet with the Fed chairman very often. They don't even really comment on what the Fed does. I was surprised yesterday, President Biden commented on the Fed.
Yeah.
It was a shock. The presidents just don't do that because there's this supposed independence of the Fed. And those lines are getting blurred. And it's not just yesterday. It's been happening for a little while. But they meet secretly. And Ronald Reagan would argue with Paul Volcker. And Paul Volcker would say, look, if you want this economy to grow, we've got to push it into a recession. And they did. And then that led to the greatest bull market in history. And we're still, 2000 was a little bit of an interruption. 2008 was a big interruption. But we're in what I would consider to be a secular bull market that's going to continue for probably another 10 years unless they allow inflation to stay like this. And if they do, her pension is not going to keep up with inflation. So I do think that whoever the next president is, I don't think they're going to renew. I don't think they're going to reappoint Karen Powell, which is disturbing to me because I'm going to have to come up with another shtick.
I've worked on this so long.
I don't think it will be a challenge for you.
I hope their name is really funky. That will really help me. So I might have to, it could be Neil Kashkari. It's probably going to be somebody like Steve Moore or Art Laffer.
I hope it's Art Laffer just because I like the name Laffer.
Art Laffer does. Art Laffer, he was the guy responsible for the Laffer curve, which is in economics. It's like the holy grail of curves.
Funny story, really. Daria, what's the question? Next question.
Is it better to buy a brand new car at 0% interest or a good used car? If you buy a used car, should it only be a few years old? And do you know the best time of year to purchase the vehicles?
There's a lot in there. I'll tell you, the used car market's a tough one right now.
It's tough.
It's almost the same cost as buying a new car right now.
Yeah.
Couple-year-old model.
Used car prices are one thing that has come down a little bit, but not anywhere near where they were.
I mean, because it used to be really smart financially to buy a couple-year-old model, like a 2-3-year-old model car with low mileage. You could save tons of money. Not anymore.
Not anymore. I think depending on the model of car that you're buying, I think that's what's going to determine what my final decision is. So if I go and I say, look, I'm looking for this car because I like this car, it gets good gas, or whatever. It's fast, I like the color, the seats are comfortable, you decide. I would compare a reasonably used car, reasonable version of that car versus a new car price. And if it's within a couple $1,000, I'm going to buy the new car.
Why?
At 0%?
Yeah.
0%, Brian.
It's tough to get a 0% car loan right now, too. I don't know where they're getting that. Maybe from a family member or...
Dealers will offer the end of the month.
They have specials sometimes.
When they're trying to hit a number, and it used to be every car dealer, every big car company's year ended in December. And so December, they're like, oh, we got to hit our numbers. Got to hit your number. Get out there and sell. Everybody's working 7 days a week. You get to the end of the month, and they're basically giving these cars away just to hit their number, to get them off their lot. They don't want to have to make inventory. The inventory is taxed to them. So they don't want to keep inventory. So now their years end in January 31st or February, so they don't have that pressure at the end of the year. But find a time where there's some pressure on sales. Go to the end of the month. Don't be afraid to walk away. I've always thought I want to be fair to the car salespeople. I don't want them to go broke. So they're going to make a little bit of money off of me. That's okay. They've got to feed their families too.
Yeah, when I had to get a car a couple of months ago, I thought you could get one of those awesome zero down, 0% interest special. Come on over to Bob's Car Dealer.
Push it, pull it, drag it in.
And then you go in there and it's on one really expensive model of car.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, yeah, you want 0%? You can get this $100,000 car. Oh, great.
The
Thank
Jeep
you.
Wagoneer is $105,000.
I actually
with nothing on it.
I was determined to find one of those inmates. I just couldn't find one.
A Jeep Wagoneer? Sense. You wanted a Jeep Wagoneer?
No. A 0% interest, which they all advertise they have at any given moment, but it's never on an affordable vehicle. So, because then people would actually utilize that deal.
Right.
So anyway,
they just want to sell the car. A lot of the times the financing doesn't come from the dealership. It might come from their bank. For instance, when I bought my truck, I said, well, I'm just going to pay cash. Because, if you take a loan out for 3 months, I will knock a pretty substantial amount off the truck. And I'm like, I could do that. Heck yeah. So for 3 months, I had a loan. He said, but you can't pay it off for 3 months because they got a kickback from the bank to do that so they could take money off.
And see, they're also offering, they're offering like 7-year loans now on cars.
Yeah, in Japan, you could get a 100-year mortgage
on a car.
No, on a house. On a house.
I was going to say,
just so
Japanese
it's
cars are good, but they're not
just
that
so
good.
it's affordable.
Just so it's affordable, so they can sell a house. Yeah. Hey, can we do Gail's comment? Can we just talk about Gail?
We will after a quick break. 440-546-2255.
You see a huge group of people, and maybe they're in line to do something, and they seem happy about it. You have to wonder, okay, what am I missing? What's going on here? What are these people excited about? Well, in this case, it's thousands of people, and they're joining MediShare. Why? Well, MediShare is a much more affordable alternative to health insurance. It's reliable, too. It's a well-run community of Christians. They've been sharing each other's medical expenses for more than 30 years, so it's proven. And if you switch, you'll likely save hundreds of dollars a month. Most members wind up paying about half what they used to. And you know what? They find they like it better. MediShare's member satisfaction rate is 98%. That's way better than health insurance, as you might imagine. You don't have to pay for things you don't believe in. You get telehealth 24/7, huge freedom in choosing your doctors. At least check into it. This may be one of those things where you're like, why didn't I do this a long time ago? Why not start saving now? Call 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE. 877-58-BIBLE.
If you've been thinking about a career in aviation, consider a Bachelor of Science degree in Missionary Aviation Technology from Moody Bible Institute. Flight majors earn an average of 325 flight hours, including over 100 hours of flight experience in high-performance aircraft. You'll be fully trained to get your private, instrument, and commercial pilot certification immediately after graduation. And you'll have a foundation in Bible and avionics technical training. Visit moody.edu/aviation. That's moody.edu/aviation.
Mornings.
At the very beginning.
Profound. You should write that down.
You guys, that was like a vice presidential word salad. I can run for office now.
You really could.
Saying things like that.
You really could.
How many circles can I talk in? Let's square this circle.
440-546-2255. You want to comment on Gail's comment?
Yeah, Gail, I'll say whatever I want about cats.
She said, love you, Dave, but please don't talk about cats in a bad way.
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite cat people comment. You go to someone's house. And you're like, oh, so you got any pets? Oh yeah, we have a cat. Where is it? I want to see it. Oh, it doesn't like people.
Yes.
And you go, oh, so you're feeding it then? You're feeding it to not interact with it.
You basically have a parasite that lives under the couch and destroys the furniture.
I have never gone to a place where you go, hey, you have any pets? Yeah, we have a dog. Where is it? Oh, it doesn't like people. No, that dog does not exist.
Well, I often say if you put your dog and your wife in the trunk, come back 2 hours later, who's going to be happy to see you? It's not going to be your wife. I tried this. My wife was not happy to see me.
He did not try it. It's only a joke. It's only a joke.
Is it?
440-546-2255. Daria, what's next?
How do you feel about high-yield dividend paying ETFs that pay monthly dividends of around 11% as opposed to putting extra cash in a high-yield savings account?
Totally lost.
Whenever somebody's paying that high of a dividend, I often wonder, is it at risk from financial conditions? Because you see this a lot in oil and gas companies, and they pay extraordinary dividends. And can they meet that dividend long term? Because if we saw this with GE's a Fortune 500 company, and they got run into the ground by Jeff Immelt. Jeff Immelt, who signed on to the green energy platform, this is how green he was. Mm-hmm. He flew a Boeing business jet, which seats like 75 people, and they would fly overseas on it. And it's expensive to fly a jet overseas. Just in case that jet broke, he flew an empty one behind it. Oh. That's who was in charge of GE's green energy program, Jeff Immelt.
Wow.
Well, he ran the company into the ground through bad purchases, and the minute the dividend was at risk, the stock fell because people would buy it for the dividend. So if you've got these high dividends, I just want to make sure that they're in companies that can pay that dividend long term. So I don't mind high dividend ETFs, but I want to know what the underlying investments are. What's the top 10? What's the top 25? Can they continue that dividend payment? Is it in bonds? Is it in stocks? What is their underlying investment? That's what's really important to me.
It's amazing. That's word for word what I was going to say.
Yes, I know.
Daria, what's next?
What is the average cost for a one-time consult to make sure my finances are in order? How often should I be doing this? Every couple years? For context, I'm in my 30s, sole income for my family, no debt, one car payment, approximately $65,000 in retirement savings, and some emergency funds.
Yeah, Dave, a lot of people are fearful of getting started on planning when they're young because they think it's going to cost them like $1 million to meet with a financial planner. How does that system work?
Well, most people, for instance, can I talk about my office, how we work it?
I think you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to be self-serving. That's it. If you call me from the radio and you say, hey, I'd like to come in, I'd like to just sit down and have you take a look at things, I'm not charging anything. You don't have to work with us. Is that common? I think it's more common than not, really. I think it is.
So then how do people make money in your business? How does that work?
Well, we manage assets. There might be, some people might say, well, you have no life insurance. You need life insurance. You have 5 kids, a mortgage, your wife or your spouse stays at home and raises the kids or homeschools. And if you die, how are they going to continue that lifestyle?
So you get a commission on that or something?
There's generally a commission on something like that.
But let's just say someone has a whole bunch of investments through a financial advisor. How are they compensated? It's like a percentage.
Either
sometimes,
a commission. Right? There's commission sales, which I don't like because that puts you on opposite sides of the table. You almost have an adversarial relationship if you're commission oriented. Or there's fee-based. So if I make more money, you make more money. I have an incentive to pay attention to your account, and there's no commission if we buy or sell in there. There's only fees. It's generally an annual fee. Our office, many years ago, I wanted to make it easy math for me. Really? So I made it an easy percentage to remember, and it's way lower than average because I want people to stay for a long time.
Is that pulled from the investments, or is that like a check you write?
It's pulled from the investments on a quarterly basis, and it comes right out.
Now, I had an experience early on when Sarah and I were 20s, very long time ago.
Yeah,
where we also went to a financial advisor and we wanted them to help us create a plan.
Yeah, so you could charge a fee.
And that cost money.
Yeah, if you are asking somebody to produce a detailed financial plan, you're going to pay in between $250 and $500 for that. Most people don't actually need that. I have this extremely complex financial planning program.
I've heard people complain about it, yeah.
It will.
Because you expect people to do their homework in advance, and no one likes homework.
Mm-hmm. It will produce a 150-page financial plan for you. You don't need it. You really don't need it. It looks great. It's colorful. It has a lot of pictures and graphs and things in there. You're never going to read it. I'm telling you, you're never going to read it. Most people need very focused situational advice about certain things. Now, some people, like a 30-year-old, they're married, they have some kids, they're both working. they need a little bit more of a holistic approach. And I think you could do it. We have made this so common. We try to make it like brain surgery, so you think you can't do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Brian, would you do brain surgery on yourself?
Let me think about that. No.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Are your proctologist and your brain surgeon the same person?
I'm not sure. Maybe they're.
Because if they are, we have a problem. But this is not rocket science or brain surgery. You could do these things yourself. The thing is, do you know the questions to ask? And that's really, have you looked at everything? So sitting down with somebody, I think, is a really good idea because they will ask the difficult questions. I have people will walk out of my office and I'm pretty sure I'm never going to see them again because I've asked them some very pointed, direct questions, and I'll start to see the argument brewing between a couple. And my first boss said, when you start an argument between a couple, do not intervene. Just sit back and watch. And so a lot of times people will come back and say, well, when we left here before, we were really mad at you. I know. I didn't think I was going to see you again. But lo and behold, here you are.
Let's squeeze in one or two, depending on how fast we can answer.
I'll do it fast, I promise.
Oh, I only have one more. Can a TOD deed protect my house from the nursing home in Ohio? I'm not sure what that's referring to.
No.
That's transfer on death deed.
Yeah. It's got to be in a trust. So if you're going into a nursing home and you're going to exhaust your money, and then you're going to go on Medicaid, there's certain planning that you could do from that. But the mistake that people make is if you're married and one of you goes into a nursing home, typically they cannot make you sell your house. It's where you get into trouble is when you start turning things into cash to hide it from people. So there are attorneys who will specialize in Medicaid planning, helping you. It's also a moral dilemma. So is it morally correct to hide your money from the government so that you could qualify for government assistance?
No.
Well, you're answering that question, or
I'm answering that.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to talk about that on the air, and it's amazing. Yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Okay, no. So for you, it's no.
Hide assets to take money that people actually need.
You're doing something that's legal. It's not illegal.
Yeah, but not everything that's legal is moral.
Okay, well, there you have it.
440-546-2255 is the number. If you want to reach out to Dave Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group, just come to us. We'd love to connect you with Dave. Again, or just go on the internet. It's pretty awesome.
Gail's not going to leave us alone.
What does she do now?
Gail hasn't texted in like half an hour.
This is what cat people do. They're incessant.
Yeah. Well, it's because they're always a little on edge because cats are just around trying to attack you. Right. And they're silent. They just appear.
They got those sharp claws, and like dogs have teeth, but your dog doesn't just come around the corner and bite you.
No, they want to see you. They're excited.
But cats will do that to you.
Mine don't do that. They greet me at the door.
Mm-hmm. All 50 of them.
There are two. I have two.
I think more than one might make you a cat lady.
How many do you have, Brian?
They're not allowed inside, so it doesn't count.
Full of them.
I don't even know how many I have. I don't pay attention to it.
I think it's obvious. We need Jimmy on a sidebar to find out what's really going on. Jimmy, sidebar. Jimmy, sidebar.
Dave Szfranski, thank you so much for your time today and your expertise.
Love you guys.
Not as much as we love you,
I
Dave.
know.
Dave, I love you.
Thank you, Brian.
Dave?
Yes.
I love you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I know.
We'll talk to you